Members of the commission, we're now live. Good evening and welcome to the November 12th, 2025 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett and I am the chair. I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Carly Bond.
Mark Dominiani.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Commissioner Doman.
Michael Galway.
Jonathan Kaplan.
Ian Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you very much. The first item on our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised? Yes, Madam Chair. They were advertised in the October 29th edition of the Washington Times. Thank you. If anyone is here to testify for any of the cases, please give a speaker form to staff and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to case 1C at 7212 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1D at 7200 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1E at 19811 Darnestown Road, Bealsville, 1F at 10 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1G at Beach Bank Road and Capitol View Avenue, 1H at 19001 Buck Lodge Road, Boyd's, 1I at 8E Melrose Street, Chevy Chase, and will we be hearing 1J? It appears that the owner for 1J has not arrived. However, if you do approve this out on consent and she does come to testify, you could reopen that item. Okay. So I'm going to put this on the consent, and if she comes, okay. 1J at 3923 Prospect Street, Kensington.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including conditions recommended by staff. Hop number 1135654 at 7212 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1134607 at 7200 Maple Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1136185 at 19811 Darnestown Road, Bealsville. Hop number 1136208 at 10 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1136655 at Beach Bank Road and Capitol View Avenue. Hop number 1136176 at 19001 Buck Lodge Road, Boyd's. Hop number 1137024 at 8 East Melrose Street, Chevy Chase. And hop 1138162 at 3923 Prospect Street, Kensington.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I'll second.
If any discussions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any noes or abstentions? No, the motion passes unanimously. So these cases are all approved. If you have any questions, you can speak to staff tomorrow during regular business hours. We appreciate your work to preserve your properties and in working with staff to submit easily approvable work permits. We will now move on to the hops we will be hearing, and we're going to start with item 1A at 7411 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is the staff report, please?
This is Devin Murtha for the record. This is HOP review number 1132240 for siding replacement at 7411 Carroll Avenue in Tacoma Park. The subject property is located on a corner lot at the intersection of Carroll Avenue and Boyd Street. It contains a 2.5-story frame house with wood siding. The property is listed as a contributing resource in the Tacoma Park Historic District and is subject to review under the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, Chapter 24A of the Montgomery County Code, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. Based on historic maps, it appears the overall footprint of the property is historic, including the partial wraparound porch. At some point after 1963, the house was wrapped with asbestos siding. In the 1980s, the former owners removed the cladding to reveal the original wood siding. The house was also featured in the 1989 Tacoma Park House and Gardens tour. Here are a few photos of the resource, including the facade on the left and the rear elevation on the right. The applicant is proposing to remove the wood siding, wrap the house with an energy-efficient material, and install fiber cement siding and corner posts. The existing wood siding has a 4-inch reveal, and the proposed James Hardy brand siding has a 7-inch reveal and a faux wood grain texture. The first issue to consider in evaluating this proposal is the appropriateness of removing the wood siding. Per Standard 2, the removal of historic materials shall be avoided. Staff finds that the narrow wood siding is historic and a character-defining feature of the resource and the district. The wood siding differentiates the house from later additions to the district, which were increasingly constructed with brick post-1930 and artificial materials into the late 20th century. Although the facade of the subject property boasts some modest colonial revival elements, the overall character of the house relies on its simple form and natural materials. Staff finds that the removal of wood siding, which constitutes most of the exterior, would have a negative impact on the overall character of the house contra the standards. Per Standard 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Staff finds that the applicant has not sufficiently demonstrated that the existing siding is in poor condition or in need of a complete replacement. In the application materials, the agent, Homegenius Renovations, stated that the issue with the siding includes paint peeling from sun exposure, deterioration from old age, and possible mold or water damage in some areas. The agent has not identified any specific areas of water damage or submitted a comprehensive conditions assessment. To staff's knowledge, there is no evidence of moisture infiltration in the house. Staff conducted a site visit on October 1st to look at the condition of the siding. This brief ground-level assessment does not replace a comprehensive condition assessment. Staff found that there were no obvious signs of widespread deterioration or rot. Much of the siding appears to be in fair condition. Some of the corner boards have cracks, and some of the boards on the rear elevations show signs of warping and cupping. In several areas, newer wood siding in good condition has been installed to match the historic siding. Staff finds that any defective boards can be replaced with wood siding to match. In certain areas, particularly on the south elevation, the paint is peeling. Staff finds that this is likely a maintenance issue and not necessarily evidence of defective wood. Wood should be painted every 5 to 10 years. Painting and other wood maintenance, including selective replacement of cracked boards, is eligible for the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Tax Credit. These photos taken by staff show some sample conditions on the house. In some areas, such as on the rear elevation, there is more evidence of cracking and wear, while in other areas, such as the facade and underneath the covered porch, the boards appear to be in relatively good condition. Staff recommends the applicant return with a more comprehensive material survey demonstrating the extent and specific location of defects. The second issue to consider in evaluating this proposal is whether it is appropriate to install the proposed fiber cement siding on the house. Staff notes that this question is only pertinent if the applicant can successfully demonstrate that the condition of the siding is deteriorated beyond reasonable repair or localized replacement. Per the guidelines, artificial siding on areas visible from the public way is discouraged where such materials would replace or damage original building materials that are in good condition. Also per the guidelines, alteration to areas that do not directly front on a public right-of-way which involve the replacement of or damage to original ornamental or architectural features are discouraged but may be considered and approved on a case-by-case basis. In this case, staff finds that the proposed artificial material is not appropriate due to its visibility from the right-of-way. The subject property is situated on a corner lot along a prominent street and has a high level of visibility from both Carroll Avenue and Boyd Street. Per Standard 6, where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Staff finds that the proposed fiber cement siding does not replicate the appearance of historic wood siding in design, texture, or material. Fiber cement plank is substantially thinner than wood siding and casts a weaker shadow. The relatively flat appearance and diminished shadow lines do not effectively mimic the look of real wood siding. The HPC routinely allows for the use of fiber cement siding on new construction and on building additions within the district, precisely because it differentiates the old from the new. The photo on the left shows how thin fiber cement siding is. The photo on the right was taken from a National Park Service brief. It shows wood siding on the left elevation and fiber cement siding on the right elevation, highlighting the difference in dimensionality between the two materials. Staff also finds that the 7-inch reveal of the proposed siding is significantly larger than the 4-inch reveal of the existing wood siding and would alter the overall profile. Staff finds that the comparatively thin profile of the proposed fiber cement siding will alter the relationship between the siding and the historic window and door trim. Wood is a readily available building material, and staff finds that it is possible to match the existing wood siding in kind with the same material and exposure per Standard 6. These photos show the difference between the proposed and existing siding. The photo on the left depicts James Hardy siding with a 7-inch reveal, and the photo in the middle depicts the current wood siding with a 4-inch reveal. And the photo on the right is a detail of the proposed faux wood grain texture. The HPC has routinely required that fiber cement siding have a smooth texture when approved. HPC decisions do not set precedent, but staff often includes past decisions in reports for informational purposes. In this case, staff was not able to find a case in which the HPC approved the replacement of historic wood siding with an artificial material on a historic resource in Tacoma Park. The most relevant recent case was an application for siding replacement at the March 8, 2023 meeting. At this meeting, the HPC heard a preliminary consultation for the property at 5 Montgomery Avenue in Tacoma Park. The applicant applied to remove the asbestos siding and replace it with either fiber cement or wood siding. In the report, staff wrote that, quote, staff notes that on the historic portions of the house, fiber cement siding is inappropriate and any new siding approved by the HPC should be wood. In this case, the HPC did not make a specific ruling, but directed the applicant to remove a section of the asbestos siding to see if any original wood siding was underneath. The applicant did find wood siding, and the HPC later approved an in-kind replacement in areas in which the wood was deteriorated. In reviewing this proposal, staff engaged supplemental guidelines from the National Park Service. These guidelines are not binding, however, they offer well-considered interpretations of the standards that are considered best practice. In Preservation Brief 16, the use of substitute materials on historic building exteriors, the authors emphasize that retention and repair of original historic materials is preferred, and substitute materials should be considered only when localized repair or replacement in kind is infeasible. The authors also contend that while fiber cement is the most appropriate artificial replacement material for wood siding, as compared to vinyl or metal, it does not effectively replicate the thickness of historic siding. The advantage of fiber cement siding is that it is compatible but not replicative, and therefore appropriate for building additions and new construction per Standard 9. Staff finds that the applicant is not proposing to install the fiber cement siding on an addition or new construction. Additionally, the applicant has not demonstrated that localized repair or replacement in kind is infeasible. In Preservation Brief 3, Improving Energy Efficiency in Historic Buildings, the authors offer guidance on energy-efficient upgrades in historic buildings. This guidance is relevant as the applicant plans to install an energy-efficient wrapping underneath the new siding. In particular, the authors write that removing historic siding and replacing it with new siding to introduce insulation into the wall cavity of a frame building should not be undertaken on historic buildings. Even if the historic siding is to be reinstalled, the process of removal inevitably leads to the loss of historic material. Instead, energy updates should concentrate on improvements that will have the smallest impact on the historic fabric of the building. Staff also finds that the treatment of installing a wrapping, while common on new construction, is not always an effective solution for historic properties. According to the National Trust for Historic Preservation, some more effective solutions to energy leaks in historic homes include adding insulations to key spaces, such as the attic and the basement, repairing and weatherizing windows, and sealing any leaks for air infiltration. Staff finds the proposal does not satisfy any of the requirements of Chapter 24A. Per 24A8B1, the proposal will substantially alter the exterior features of a historic resource. Per B2, the proposed material is not a compatible substitute for wood siding. Per B3, the proposal will not provide additional protection for the historic resource. Per B4, the proposal will not correct an unsafe condition or health hazard as generally understood. Per B5, denying the proposal will not cause the owner to suffer undue hardship. And per B6, the public is not better served by granting the HOP approval. Staff recommends the HPC deny the proposal for siding replacement under Chapter 24A8, having found that the proposal is inappropriate, inconsistent with, and detrimental to the preservation, enhancement, and ultimate protection of the historic resource, and is incompatible in character with the historic resource and the purposes of Chapter 24A and the Tacoma Park Historic District guidelines, and with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. That concludes staff's presentation, and I can take any questions at this point.
Are there any questions for staff? This is Chair Burdett. I'd like to thank you for that extremely well-researched and thorough report. That you covered many issues that we will be discussing today thoroughly, and I appreciate that very much. Questions? Commissioner Haynes?
You mentioned that you did a site visit and you observed the siding from the ground level. And you also mentioned that a comprehensive condition assessment would really be necessary to fully evaluate the condition of the siding. Can you tell me what's involved in doing such a comprehensive assessment and who would do that?
I think I would like to see someone with more experience with siding share, but also to give a little bit more context to why the issues are happening. I haven't heard from the home renovation company if there's any moisture infiltration or if there are any reoccurring issues that can't be addressed. I was also only able to look very briefly from the ground level, but a percentage of boards that cannot be replaced might be a helpful metric to help make this decision as well. If 80% of the boards are needing to be replaced, then that's different than 10% of the boards, and that could be localized repair as opposed to a full replacement.
Thank you.
This is Chair Burdett. In evaluating the boards, you mentioned that some the boards on the back are cupping more than the boards on the front. Is that because of the direction of the sun, they're getting more solar gain, or is it simply because they possibly used a poor defective boards in the back when they originally installed them as opposed to putting the best boards on the street face?
I'm not a siding expert, and I'm really not familiar with what they did originally. Some of the boards may be original to the house and so are close to 100 years old, so I think it is reasonable that they've just ended their life expectancy. Yeah. There is more sun exposure on the south elevation. Also, the ground level ones on the facade are covered by the porch, so they would also have a lot less solar exposure.
which elevation is the south elevation? Is it front or the back?
Yeah, the rear of the property.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant was talking about removing the existing wood siding and putting a house wrap underneath, or?
The application materials mention a energy-efficient wrapping going underneath. I had asked the agent for specifications but haven't received any, so I can't comment on how that will affect the proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, the applicant can come forward and make their presentation. Mr. Rodius Gray Coker, if I've got that right. And if you would please sit down in front of a mic and turn the mic on so the green light shows. And then identify yourself by name and your relationship to this application.
Good evening. Rodius Gray Coker. I am the owner of 7411 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park.
One second, sir. Isaac, are we picking that up okay? Did we? Okay, my apologies. Please
That's okay.
continue.
I can't hear myself either. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't hear myself either, so
Okay.
I'm not sure. This one? Okay. Good evening. Doesn't sound any better. Oh, there you go.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
All right.
And you have 7 minutes to make your case or explain anything to us, and then we'll ask you questions.
Okay. Basically, our goal, I think it's already been mentioned, but I'll just reiterate. Our goal is to remove the siding and wrap the house, basically, because there's hardly any adequate insulation from inside of the house. So we believe that wrapping the house would enhance or reduce the amount of energy that's being spent. We also believe that the material that was chosen, which is the hardy plank cement board, is also, in these days, a material that's probably almost indestructible. And so it's, the numerous reviews show that how much it's better than wood. It looks like wood. I mean, I think if you are 5-10 feet away from the house, you couldn't tell it wasn't wood that was on the house. So we've actually done, pretty much extensive research to indicate that that is the typical replacement material to be used when you're trying to keep the integrity of the architectural structure of the house, the architectural look of the house, as well as the different types of colors that are offered in terms of historic colors. So we believe in this day and age that replacing wood with wood makes no sense. Because again, in terms of maintenance, we would probably end up looking 5 years down the road. I don't know how many times we've already painted, but we'd probably look at repainting the house over and over and over again. So that was the thought of, hey, replace the current wood with the hardy plank wood that's being offered. Now, we have noticed that there are a couple houses, at least one house that we're aware of, down the street where hardy plank was approved, and sometime earlier this year. So we're not sure why the historic district would take the position of not approving this replacement. That's all I have.
That's all you have?
That's
Okay,
all I have.
so Rebecca or Commissioner Ballo?
No.
Or
No.
Commissioner, I'm sorry,
No, no.
Supervisor Ballo?
No, I'm sorry. Sir, do you have an address for that?
7423, I believe, Carroll Avenue.
We can look that up really briefly while you ask your other questions.
Okay, that would be great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Doman?
Actually, I have a lot of questions. Have you had an energy audit done on your house? Do you know what I mean by an energy audit?
I do,
Where they
I
do a
believe-
blower door test, they check for
Right.
air leakage, they check for insulation in the attic, they check for everything on your house. Have you had that done?
I believe we did a while ago, not recently, though.
And what were the recommendations on your energy audit?
Basically add more insulation within the attic itself. But we do know there are, I think the older houses were built, there are spaces in the siding. So there are areas where you can actually put your hand on the wall and feel it's cool. So that's part of the intent to wrap the house.
Do you know if there's any insulation in your exterior walls? Do you know? As part of your energy audit, did they make an assessment? Yes, it's and my other question is, do you know it's balloon framed? Is it standard platform framed or is it balloon framed? Do you know that?
I do not.
And in your energy audit, did anybody say you've got a stud cavity that's 3 or 4 inches 4 inches deep? It's packed with wool insulation. It's packed with newspaper. It's packed with horsehair. Do you know anything about what's in your walls?
There's no insulation on the walls. I mean, I've ripped out some of the walls. There's nothing there.
Is that part of your energy audit?
No.
You don't know?
No, I'm saying no, it wasn't. Oh, I don't know if it's in the audit. We'll have to go back and look at that.
Okay,
But I do know that the walls are not because of my adventurous self. So I do know some of the walls are not insulated, for sure.
probably all of them.
Yeah,
Probably all of them are. How about underneath? You have a full basement underneath your house?
I do, yes.
Is it a dug basement? Is it full height, like 8 feet, 6 feet?
It is a 10-foot height.
Are the sidewalls insulated in your house?
They are now, yes.
You know, a lot of the problem with paint peeling is moisture behind it, okay? Moisture will get into the stud cavities, okay? It can come in up high, it can come on down. The moisture needs to get out of the house some way. Open cavities will breathe somewhat. Do you know? I mean, you can put a moisture meter in. Do you know if you have a lot of moisture behind your siding? Do you know that?
I don't believe we do, because I think if we did, we'd probably see signs of it on the walls.
Well, paint peels off. If you have moisture behind you, you get paint peeling.
Okay, but interior-wise, wouldn't you also kind of notice?
Well, yeah, I assume your house is plaster
Yes.
on the inside, in which case plaster becomes cold and dampish on the
Okay.
thing. But have you taken off any siding to take a look at what's behind the siding? Do you know what's in there?
Have not, no.
Do you know how the frame is the framing of such a quality that you could remove siding and put siding back? A lot of times, if it's balloon frame, your studs have deteriorated. If they get moisture in there, the studs won't hold a nail anymore, something like that. Do you know? You don't know that. You don't know what the situation is behind any of that.
No, I don't think I've experienced any of the studs not holding.
Have you banged on the wood to see if it's soft or it's hard or if it's contiguous or is it just all mush? Do you know what the siding's like?
I have not, but I don't believe it's mush.
So it's fairly
I think
still
it's-
fairly
yeah, I
good
think
siding.
it's pretty still, yeah, I think it's
Fairly
pretty
good
still
siding.
solid. I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a big project. Tearing anything apart like that. As soon as you start changing it, you have trim around windows. You have all kinds of problems that come up. Things don't fit right. Anything else like that. It's really a big undertaking. You say you can put a house wrap on. Do you know? Has an architect specified anything for you? Do you know what you're going to use?
The company did specify the type of wrap that they provide. Fortunately, I don't have the exact, I'll have to look that up and see exactly the name of the wrap and the quality of the wrap.
It's not Tyvek, is it by any chance?
It is not.
Tyvek,
No,
okay.
it is not.
Generally, house wraps prevent air infiltration,
Sure.
which is one of the big reasons you lose heat out of your house. Cold air leaks in, warm air leaks out.
Sure.
Okay, it doesn't add much insulation to the house. Now, a house wrap is good, but you also need either a rain plane or something like that, or else you need a cavity that will air dry itself. I mean, if you undertake anything, you can make the situation worse than it is now. You gotta be
Yes.
very, very, very careful and make sure you got someone advising you, a good energy auditor, someone advising you what you're gonna do, because you can do more damage than you can do good. So
Understood,
that's my
yes.
question.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I've been told that in, not in all cases, a wrap is a good thing. Not in all cases. I've been told that, yes.
This is Chair Burdett. I have a couple of questions. Have you done exploratory work on your exterior walls from the inside, like take off some plaster and see what is back there? I mean, you said you don't have any insulation in the walls, but like, have you seen what's going on from the inside, looking to the framing and then the siding, or the sheathing and the siding?
No, I haven't seen any negative effects.
So you've not done any sort of exploratory work from the inside?
Not from the inside, no. Haven't taken
Okay.
other walls down or anything like that.
Or even done any?
Patched up a few walls, but at the time they were patched, we weren't considering replacing the siding.
Okay. When you said that the company had recommended a house wrap, what company was that? What company are you talking about?
I believe they call it Design Solutions. I'll have to take a look and double check on the name of the company. Sorry, I'm not so good with those names. But let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, I mean, what is Design Solutions? What is their relationship to your project?
They would be the ones replacing the siding.
So they are probably a rep for Hardy?
They are, yes,
Okay.
yes. Let me just get the correct name of the company. Sorry.
The name on the application is Home Genius
Thank
Renovations.
you.
Home Genius, okay.
Yes, thank you.
So you are the property owner and you will be residing in the house?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. You want to replace the wood siding and put this wrap on because the company's recommending that you use their product and the product that they're repping. But have they made any recommendations to you about putting insulation in the exterior wall cavities in the attic, or filling in? Okay.
No, the intent, no.
They have not. Okay. Another question is, are these the original windows in the house?
Original windows, yes.
Yes, okay. And the sashes open easily? So
yes.
they have sash weights
Yes,
in the?
Yes.
Okay. That's a significant issue because sash weight cavities, while they make wonderful windows, move well, they also let in a lot of cold or in a lot of humidity. So that is something to keep in mind about this. Any other questions, Commissioner Doman?
Hate to beat this. I just, I did go out to look at the house, okay?
you did?
I didn't walk around, I didn't come up and knock on your door or anything like that, okay? But I did walk around, and but you're up on a hill, you're up quite high, and I really couldn't see. I really would have liked to have been able to check the integrity of the boards that are on your house. I don't know if staff did that or not, if you checked them or not. Did you pound on the boards?
Yeah, I knocked on some boards.
And your conclusion?
I thought they were sound. Again, some of them are older, so they're in varied conditions. I didn't think that they needed to be replaced, but I am not a siding expert.
Well, pounding on a board gives you a lot of information, you know. You can tell pretty quick if it's all mush behind it, or I've seen houses where the only thing holding the board up is the paint, you know, and you push on it and the paint peels off and the wood is all soft and mushy, you know. And not only that, but you lose the wall framing. It can be rotted out too. I mean, it can become a big problem. I think from my observation of your house, even though I'm 20 feet away, I think it looked pretty good, okay, as is, okay? I think it looked pretty good. I thought the pictures that you presented and provided to staff here, I think they don't show any horrible deterioration. Again, I would love to go out and give you some more information because I used to do energy auditing and I used to do historic restoration work and I'm a carpenter. And I've done everything that you're talking about doing, I've done, okay? I've done all this before. I could give you good advice, but it's not my job. I'm up here, okay? So, but you need to get some better information. I think, from what I've seen, the siding looks pretty good. How long have you owned the house, and how often has it been painted, do you know?
I think we've painted probably 3 times,
And
and
how,
we've been there since '99.
since 99?
Yes.
Okay, 15 years. That's not unusual, I don't think, to do that often on a thing. And I think the paint looked like it's in pretty good shape. I didn't see a lot of indication from the pictures you provided that it was peeling off because of moisture behind in the wall cavities. I didn't see any indication of that. So I think you might be better just to leave it alone, okay? But that's only my opinion. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Chair Burdett. I agree with Commissioner Doman. Up here, you have several architects, you have a mechanical engineer, you have a individual commissioner who did historic restoration on properties before he got here, and you have staff, okay? First off, the house is a contributing resource in Tacoma Park and therefore has to meet the guidelines that Tacoma Park has for historic properties and contributing resources. So replacing wood siding with hardy board is not going to happen. That's just not acceptable. You could replace it in kind with wood siding, but if the wood siding you have is still in good shape, it's old growth. It's better than most siding you could find now. So it's better to keep it. It's better to check, to, one, get a comprehensive condition assessment and determine what's causing some of the peeling paint. Is it just age? It could be. Did someone touch up the paint and used a latex instead of what they should have been using? Did they not strip the wood properly the last time it was painted, so therefore they put contemporary paint over an older paint of a different composition? There could be a lot of reasons why the paint is peeling. But your siding is a part of the house that defines the features of the house, defines the history and the character of the house. And to replace it with hardy board is not appropriate because hardy board doesn't have the same profile, it doesn't have the same area of exposure. And while we will accept hardy board on an addition, we won't accept it on your house. Now, so that's kind of the start point with this, is understanding you are under strict requirements. Now, you also get a tax credit for work done on the exterior of your house that meets the guidelines and the requirements. And it's, I never remember.
25%.
25% of the
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah.
You can take off, you can get a tax credit for your property tax. Okay, the installation, the putting wrap on your, I'm an architect, okay, and I happen to write technical specifications on materials for houses, so I kind of know a little bit about this. The house wrap is fine on new construction. Maybe, but on an older house, you have to be very careful because older houses, the way they were built, they breathed. Summer, winter, fall, spring, they breathed, and that's why they're still around, is because any moisture that got in was evaporated. With a house wrap, that complicates issues a lot, and you suddenly have to deal with the exterior and the interior environment, the other side of that. And most houses that get house wrap have sheathing. They have the stud, they have sheathing, they have the house wrap, then they have the siding. Your house probably doesn't have sheathing underneath that.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Correct.
And again, replacing that, taking off the siding, you're gonna have to put sheathing up, you're gonna have to put the hardy board on. That upsets the windows, the details, the cornices, everything. It just complicates everything. What you need to do first, well, you need to get an energy audit. And whatever utility you're getting your heat source from should be able to provide a free energy audit that will tell you where the major leaks are. I live in a 1929 house that is not insulated, wood-sided, doesn't have a wrap or anything. So I know it leaks like a sieve, okay? But you can do some things to help the energy loss in your house. Good insulation in the attic, good insulation under the first floor between you and the basement. You can insulate your floors, between the joists, and that will help, although it gets a little much by that point. You can insulate the exterior walls by doing it from the inside with some very small holes. The best insulation you can do is mineral wool, because it allows moisture to breathe and evaporate. It's also non-flammable. It is a little more difficult to get in. There's also cellulose, right? Cellulose, the paper product. That's something that's a little smaller and can be piped in. Yeah. You can use foam, but be very careful with that. I don't recommend it, because if you do it wrong, you can create a lot of damage on your house. But you need to talk to someone who isn't trying to sell you a product. So you need to talk to find someone who can give you some practical advice and isn't intent on selling you square footage of siding material, because that's what they're in the business for, and you need some outside advice. Those are my comments, okay? And I'm not speaking for the commission right now. I'm just giving you my personal opinion. Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. I think both Chair Burdett and Commissioner Doman said a lot of the right things. And as a mechanical engineer who has also done energy audits and taken a look at the building, you'll be surprised that the loss through the wall itself is really not the largest contributing factor at all to the overall loss of heat from your house in the wintertime. I was just kind of going through and trying to pull together over 40 years of doing this, and I'm thinking the slab is probably around, these are rough ideas, but the slab is 5% loss. The walls would be about 10% of your loss. The windows could be as high as 30%, particularly if you've got your counterweights and the leakage that occurs there around the edges of the windows. The roof is probably somewhere around 30%, and the doors are probably somewhere, due to infiltration, probably somewhere around 25%. So the walls themselves are really, of course there's a loss, and if you could eliminate it, you're just that much further ahead. But that's really probably, you're putting a lot of money and a lot of cost into something that, if it's from an energy standpoint, I would question if that's the best use of your dollars. Now, I can't argue about the fact that you've got to repaint this house every number of years. So from that standpoint, and there's no doubt about it that a hardy board or a fiber cement board would be so much less maintenance free. But from purely from an energy standpoint, it wouldn't be, if you ran a cost benefit analysis, you would find that, wow, if I was doing it just from an energy standpoint, the payback would not be there. And when you get it, maybe I suggest that, having an energy audit, when you take somebody in there with a thermal camera, you'll find that the spots where the color gradient is the strongest is at your glass, it's at the corners of your walls. You're not going to see it at the wall itself, unless, of course, there's a hole drilled through the wall or something. So I think that, in light of the fact that, this is a contributing resource, I think Chair Burdett said it very well. It's a non-starter when it comes to the fiber cement board on the front of the house. Thanks.
Any other comments from any of the other commissioners? No? Then I think you've heard at least 3 of our opinions, which is the hardy board is a non-starter. We will not approve that. We recommend you go get an energy audit, a comprehensive condition assessment on your woods, on your siding and the paint might be worth doing, simply to determine what's causing the peeling paint, because it may not be moisture, it may be something else, or just age. And to see how, you know, again, old-growth wood, which is what your siding is made out of, is a lot better than the wood you get nowadays. So it's always better to keep that. And, you know, think about, do some pricing on insulation within the house and start there, because that's a quick, fast, easy way to deal with the winter cold. If you don't have storm windows, look into getting some storm windows. They can be on the inside or the outside of your house. My husband and I put them on our windows on the outside because we didn't want to lose our historic windows, and they work like a charm. So I can, they are pricey, yes, but, you know, but they're also probably applicable for a tax credit, maybe? I don't know.
Storm windows?
Storm windows? Yes, okay.
Yes, storm windows will get the tax credit.
Yep. But do a little bit more homework first, and then we hope to see you come back with a hop that doesn't involve the hardy board, and maybe some other things that, on the exterior, that we'll be happy to approve for you.
All right.
But thank you very much, and thank
Thank
you for
you.
your patience.
All right, thank you.
Oh, wait,
Chair Burdett,
yes.
two items, if I may. To close the loop on 7423 Carroll Avenue, so that was brought up by the applicant. That hop was approved out in 2023. It was a non-contributing resource in Tacoma Park, where it was an in-kind replacement of existing cementitious fiberboard at the property.
There you go. It was, a previous owner had put cementitious board of whatever type on the house, and this is a non-contributing resource, the one you're talking about down the street.
Okay.
So they were allowed to replace it with the hardy board. They didn't replace wood siding. Okay. Tacoma Park's kind of interesting. You never know if, like, across the street, they're not in the historic district,
Okay.
but still in Tacoma Park. But then also you have a lot of non-contributing resources in Tacoma that you may not realize are there, and they don't have to comply as well as a house as fine as yours has to comply. Yes, Doman?
Do we
Commissioner
have
Doman?
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, you have a very nice house.
Thank you.
Having walked around and seen it, it sits up nice, it's got the big porch on it, it's a beautiful house. Take care of it. I give you a lot of credit for what you've done to it, and it looks like it's been well-maintained, so keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
We do need a motion, because for the HOP application, so we do need a motion the staff is recommending denial of the application. That is the permit that is in front of you this evening.
Is deferment an option?
I would not recommend it. Typically, you defer when you need more information to help you establish the underlying fact pattern for your denial or your approval. It sounds as if the commission doesn't have any questions about, you know, the facts and findings that have been made by the staff. I would recommend a motion.
Very well, then. I will make a motion that I move that the Historic Preservation Commission deny HOP number 1132340 at 7411 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park, based on the staff report and also the comments made during the discussion.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are no nays, no abstentions. This motion is passed, and your hop is denied. And good luck.
Thank you.
Again, you have a beautiful house, so do right by it. Moving on, we are moving to item number 1B at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Is there staff reports?
Yes, Madam Chair. We also are receiving the sign up to testify now from the property owner at 1J 3923 Prospect Street. So we will hear that case after case 1B.
Madam Chair, this is Dan Bruckert for the record. This is the Historic Area Work Permit Revision Number 5 at 102 East Kirk Street in Chevy Chase. So this is an outstanding resource. It should say Chevy Chase, not Tacoma Park. Constructed circa 1910. We're to follow the Chevy Chase Village Historic District Design Guidelines, Montgomery County Code Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. So just to give you a bit of a background, the HPC approved the original hop on May 22nd, 2024. On July 10th of that year, the HPC approved a revision that included changes to the proposed deck, patio, fencing, and the reconstruction of a set of stone stairs. September 4th, the HPC approved a revision to fill in a rear arch and eliminate a rear door and alter the fenestration on the east elevation. And then in this year, on May 14th, the HPC approved with conditions a proposal to remove and replace 8 windows and 3 doors. And then most recently, on September 17th, the HPC approved a revision on the boundaries of the swimming pool and the patio location to comply with Chevy Chase Village zoning requirements. So the proposal this evening is to remove a chimney, and the applicant seeks to repair the roof where the chimney was. This is the chimney in question. It's on the rear L of the property. There are several visible cracks from grade, and the applicant included a letter from an engineer stating that the wind load would produce a tensile stress on the base of the brick masonry chimney, which is considered too high, particularly in its deteriorated condition. So we received elevation drawings. This is just the rear elevation. You see in the upper left is the existing condition. It's a very tall, slender chimney. It has the same crown as the much larger gable end chimneys. So there is no guideline that specifically addresses chimneys in the Chevy Chase Village Historic District Design Guideline. At about 4 o'clock this afternoon, we received comments from the Chevy Chase Village LAP that they reviewed the application and concurred with the staff recommendation. The guidelines state that the HPC, when reviewing a historic area work permit, must give considerable weight to the recommendations of the local advisory panel. So staff finds that the information supplied by the structural engineer is sufficient to justify removing the existing chimney. Staff finds that the subject chimney is visible from the right-of-way and finds that the subject chimney is smaller than the 2 gable end chimneys. Additionally, as is noted before, this chimney has the same crown design as the larger gable end chimneys. So regarding previous HPC decisions, the HPC has allowed the removal of utilitarian chimneys and not required replacement in some instances. 26 Quincy Street, which is very close to the subject property, also a contributing resource, so a lower level of designation, had a smaller square chimney removed at the rear of the house. There have also been a number of instances where the HPC determined the chimney was highly decorative or integral to the building's design and historic significance, and required an applicant to reconstruct the chimney above the roof line. Usually this is done by a structure built in the attic that supports the chimneys. They don't have to be functional. They can be 1 brick wide if necessary. And the HPC has frequently determined that this action has no material effect on the historic resource as the appearance, materials, and design are consistent, so it doesn't require a hop. So additionally, the design guideline directs the HPC that structures with the highest degree of importance should receive the most detailed level of design review for hops. And again, this is an outstanding resource. And considering the resource categorization, because the chimney is visible and because the crown matches the gable end chimneys, all visible from the public right-of-way, staff recommends the HPC add a condition to the hop requiring the applicant to reconstruct the chimney with a matching crown above the roof line. That can be done in masonry. It can be framed. Our primary concern is the exterior appearance when it's finished, and that with the recommended conditions, staff recommends the HPC approve the hop under 24A8B1, the design guidelines and standards 2 and 5. And I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. I may have missed it. Is this a brick chimney that's stucco clad or?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? If not, the applicant can come forward. It's William Williams and Luke Olson.
That's correct.
Nice to
Luke
see you
Olson,
again,
GTM
Mr. Olson.
Architects.
So turn on the mics, make sure the green light's on, then identify yourselves and your relationship to this project for the record.
Will Williams, I'm the owner. And Luke Olson, GTM Architects.
Good to see you both again.
Thank you. Good to see
I think you might get an award for the most number of hops in front of us lately.
Very old house.
so
It's a very large house with a lot of details.
Yeah. So you have 7 minutes to make a case, explain what you're doing, whatever, and then we'll ask you questions.
Sure. So we've read the staff report and understand the position. We would just ask that we not have to put this particular chimney back. It is the least visible of all of the chimneys in the extreme rear and the least visible portion of the house. I think it's visible from the public right-of-way if you get to the furthest back point of the property on the side, not at all from the front. It's not well designed or proportioned. It has the same crown detail, but that's a really simplistic detail, relatively speaking, from a design of a stucco chimney. You don't see the shoulders or anything. It's just a box sticking straight up from the rear. It's rather utilitarian. It's very skinny. It was not structurally sound, and it was damaged from the outside. It's on a part of the building that has been modified repeatedly over the years, and we've subsequently had approval for modifications to other parts of the rear of this building. And it's also screened by the addition. We are adding a side addition that's closer into that public right-of-way on the right side that also has a large chimney on it that's going to more closely match this. So it's not like we're losing a feature for good. We had 3 chimneys. We're going to have 3 chimneys, and this one is not going to be easily visible. And we just don't feel like it's a loss to not have to rebuild it, and there's a cost factor to put in a chimney that doesn't serve any purpose anymore. That sounded pretty good.
So just to verify, the chimney is no longer functional. There's no flue up to it anymore from any fireplaces or exhaust vents?
The renovation work removed the rear chimney that was in the kitchen space. We didn't feel like a kitchen was an appropriate location for a fireplace, and all of the mechanical systems are no longer in that location either.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Commissioner Doman?
Maybe I missed something. Did you say there's going to be an addition with another chimney to be added to it? I mean, you have one at each gable end, and then this is the third one. Is there something else coming on that I don't know of or don't see here?
Yeah, as a part of our previous HOP application, we're adding on to the right side and rear. We're infilling the L on the back right side there, and then that has a substantial chimney that is on the street side of the addition itself. We're matching the existing chimney details with that one to be appropriate and compatible.
All right.
And that'll be a highly visible chimney.
All right, and then where you show the red curly line, that's where the chimney that is deteriorated currently exists, and it will be removed, as you show in the
That is correct.
architectural drawing here. Okay.
This is Chair Burdett. Could staff pull up a plan that shows the addition? And I apologize, I can't get into my tablet, so.
So if you look on the left side of this rear elevation, this hip section here is the addition. And then this chimney, the one that's inset from the other one, is the chimney on the addition. I would have to, I did not upload the west elevations, but I can if you would like.
No, that's fine. That helps clarify what I'm looking at here. Okay, any more questions? Commissioner Haynes?
So if I understand correctly, you're abandoning the fireplace on the first floor, which would have been in the kitchen, and presumably the bedroom that would have had this fireplace on the second floor.
Yes, the fireplace chased through the bedroom above it, and we're abandoning all of that.
Is the chimney still standing?
No, it was structurally unsound and needed to be removed.
So it's taken down already?
Yes.
I didn't see that in the report. How, was the stucco stripped? How did the engineer determine the brick and mortar was insufficient? Did he do any physical testing, or he just eyeballed it?
He eyeballed the brick and mortar. His position wasn't as much on the masonry itself as the narrow nature of the chimney and the high, like the tall height of it in relation to the adjacent hip roof structure and the lack of any structure that's tying it back into the roof that could resist those load forces. He's saying that regardless of the changes that we were making to this chimney, he did not find this chimney to be a structurally sound chimney as designed.
So it's been standing since 1920. He didn't physically observe the mortar joints by stripping the stucco and determine that it would no longer be structurally sound. Is that correct?
He's saying that the impact that we're doing would make it such that there's not a way to hold the base of that chimney up from where it was. There's not enough
Well-
structure above that point. It's
Well,
not-
I
it's
mean,
not a
that's
gable line
assuming that you would keep the structure, you'd keep the fireplaces, you'd keep the structure if the chimney were sound.
chimney. We would have to do an analysis at that point.
Yeah, I guess I want to know what came first, the chicken or the egg. I mean, is the chimney no longer viable because you didn't want fireplaces in the rooms, or was it really structurally hazard? And that naturally allowed you to remove the interior structure of the chimney.
He did not evaluate it beforehand, as the plan before that point was to retain the chimney. We got into construction, and then he evaluated it at that point, and the information that was provided to me at that time was that that chimney was really too narrow and not properly tied back to be able to be supported. Now, I did not ask him to clarify, like, historically, how is it still standing then? Or, like, is any of the damage that's on the chimney currently related to the fact that this chimney had these issues? But we were dealing with the situation as proposed, and that we were going to remove it from the interior and try to hold it up, and that was no longer feasible. They started doing that work, and that at that point, it was no longer structurally sound, and it was a risk. And I realized that that's not the ideal circumstance. We don't ever want that to happen. That is when the information was brought to my attention, and we came forward with this. Sorry, there's one other person that'd like to testify, if that is all right.
Sure.
Again, make sure the mic light is on, and then identify yourself for the record and your relationship to this project.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Smith. I'm the general contractor for this property, and I will tell you that I was personally up on the roof and observed the chimney. It had very large cracks in it. I'm not an engineer, but I will tell you, and I think we all know, that when you have very large cracks on the exterior, water gets in the winter, it freezes, it expands, and I would say that it was definitely unsafe. It was very thin, and just given the location of that chimney and the fact that one of Will's daughters was, had her room in that location, me as a father of 5, I would say I would not want to take a chance and have that chimney fall at some point into that room, so.
Well, certainly appreciate and understand, I would feel the same way. We certainly don't want to promote an unsafe condition. But at the same time, those cracks, as you said, could have simply been from moisture. The cap of the chimney may have been in need of repair and may have allowed water to come down and soak the brick or soak the stucco, and the freeze thaw, as you know, could have caused the crack more so than the condition of the brick joints, the mortar itself. Or maybe it's both, but we don't know. The only way to have known would have been to strip the stucco to properly observe the mortar joints, and then perhaps even do a test of the structure, get scaffolding up there and apply a pressure to it and see how much it deflects, and then you could really tell if the joints are failing. And I'm not so sure it couldn't have been reinforced at this point. So the fact that it's been taken down without prior approval is somewhat disturbing for us.
I think the case now is, it was taken down. It was a judgment call, and it was taken down. So the case now is, should it be replaced? And does it have redeeming value to the house, the historic nature of the house? And if you saw the west elevation of this house, which is not pictured here, you would see from Brookville Road, there are now 2 substantial fireplaces that you can see, and you would really not see this fireplace from Brookville because of that. So is it needed? It was a fireplace that was very thin and not consistent with the other fireplaces. The new fireplace is consistent with the other 2 fireplaces now. And I think that's just a call on your part. Do you think it has redeeming value on the back of the house, very thin and not in keeping with the other fireplaces? Does it have value to go back up at this point?
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. Actually, my question is more or less for staff. I didn't know that this was on the agenda, and I think I've been by the house because you've been here before, but I did not specifically go by recently to take a look at where this chimney is. So my question is, do we have any photographs of what, from the street, what this house looks like and where this chimney is? Because I can't place it just looking at the architectural drawings. The question is, how visible is it from the street, and how much does it add to the historic character of the house?
Well, I mean, that's a determination for you as
Right,
commissioners
but
individually
I need
make. But
do we have any photographs of any?
so it's on this L, if you can see the cursor. It's at the rear or towards the rear of this L. There is an addition that's approved where the other smaller L goes. And you can see the fence here, and the background of this image is at Brookville Road. So it's a corner property. Let me see if I can.
We can email you a photo of the current, project status if you'd like to bring that up.
I mean, that's a couple steps, but, so again, Commissioner Doman, the property is on the corner of Brookville and East Kirk. So you could look along the rear portion of the rear property line, and you would see it behind the house. In this image, you can't see.
You can't see it here,
You can't see it because it's tucked on the other side of the house. And again, as Mr. Olson pointed out, there is a new addition that's being constructed between this rear L and the street.
Pretty hard to see.
We have a picture of what the west elevation looks like now. As it's been constructed, and where that chimney was. You have to be on the southernmost point of Brookville to even get a glimpse of where that chimney was. And I think
would almost hide it though, wouldn't it?
that's something we can send to you.
If you'd like to submit evidence for the record, you can email it to the staff, and then we can try and get it to the commissioners up here on the dais, You can't print anything out, but that's the only way that you can submit evidence as part of your testimony now would be to email us something and then describe for the commissioners what it is that you have sent.
Yeah, we're attempting to do that. It's
Okay.
just taking a moment. Do you want to try to email directly to Dan?
This is Chair Burdett. I have a question for staff about we're saying you have to put the chimney back.
Well, that is the staff recommendation, and that is also the recommendation of the Chevy Chase Village LAP.
Yeah. But it isn't like the structure is remaining anymore underneath it, so we are, and there's no need for it, so we would be talking about putting back a faux chimney for aesthetic purposes only.
Which is something that the HPC has required before. Again, you
Yes.
don't regulate the interior, you only regulate the exterior.
Exterior.
So whatever reasons there are on the interior are food for thought, but not determinative of your final approval or not of the permit.
Thank you.
Dan, I just sent you the.
Okay, so we're getting the image. So what we can do then is if you give us just a second, we can upload that to your screens, but it's going to take just a minute. Okay.
Meanwhile, Commissioner Bond, did you have a question?
So I had the same question as Commissioner Doman, so we've covered it.
Thank you. Commissioner Dominiani.
Hi, this is Commissioner Damiani. Understanding that chimney has been removed already, are those bricks still on site, or are those bricks long gone as well, like the historic material that would have been a part of that chimney or fireplace?
The bricks are no longer on site, but it was covered by Stutco, so you wouldn't see the bricks anyway.
Got it.
You could put any brick up.
Okay.
So Luke, would you like to describe what it is that you've sent us? We've got the images up. Can you guys see them from down there at the table? Okay, great.
So this is the current status of construction as of today?
Yep.
So the portico that you see on the left side of the image there, that's the rear wall extending over of the extent of the existing house. The addition is the hyphen, and then the two-story mass with the chimney that is most prominent here. And then you can see the little bit of the L in the rear and that arch. And the chimney was starting at the higher portion of the rear L that's remaining, and then it projected over that lower two-story mass for a distance of maybe 18 inches or so, and then up very high. So it was only the portion that extended above the roof that was visible, again, very skinny, not particularly wide. If I recall, Chris, you were saying that there was evidence of damage to the brick on the interior that you were able to, like when we exposed it on the inside, that the brick was deteriorated from that point.
You could see that the brick was cracked on the inside, and certainly on the exterior, there were some very large cracks in the Stutco, which, obviously water gets in there and expands, and it just gets worse.
Are there any other questions from any of the commissioners? If not, and you finished your presentation, I think we're ready to make our comments. Would anybody like to start? I will, because the recommendation of the staff is you need to replace the chimney, functional or not, as well as the Chevy Chase LAP. And those are two significant groups to make a recommendation like that. And coming in after the fact, after you've demolished the chimney without coming to staff and saying, hey, calling them up and saying, hey, look, we've got an issue here. This chimney's cracked. It's at risk. We're worried about it. And we're giving you a heads up, but you just went ahead and took it down. That's not I appreciate why you did it on the site at the moment, but that is why you're here now. and trying to make your case. Whereas if you had contacted the staff in the moment and they're very responsive, you could have had a discussion with them. And quite frankly, I'm not quite sure I have a decision yet. Commissioner Doman, would you like to make a
Yeah.
stab?
I have to disagree with staff recommendation. I don't think this chimney adds anything to the historic character of the house. I realize it was there, I realize it went down without proper notification. But there is an addition been put on the house, there's another chimney been put on the house. Putting back one just for the sake of putting it back, to me, seems to be unnecessary. And I would, my recommendation is to accept the applicant's position that the chimney not be replaced. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
Well, as I expressed earlier, not happy that you made a decision. The hop was approved with the chimney when you discovered that it was an unsafe condition. Phone call should have been made to staff so they could look at it and have a discussion. That said, and assuming that you really did take out the rest of the structure, I will note for the record that your floor plan back in July of '24 showed a fireplace in the kitchen. So I assume that's been taken out at this point, and you'll send us a picture to confirm that. But the spirit of the fireplace is gone. There's no interior. I know we don't regulate the interior, but as much as I would tend to be a purist about the exterior, the functionality of it's gone, and therefore the spirit of the chimney is gone. And they've put a new chimney up in the addition, and so I suppose one could argue that the spirit of the architecture has been maintained in the addition. I probably also would be fine removing, with the decision to remove the chimney per Commissioner Doman's comments, as I think putting a fake chimney for historic documentation doesn't seem to be authentic, and therefore I would probably support its removal.
Commissioner Galway.
This is Commissioner Galway. Well, first of all, this is an outstanding resource, and that weighs heavily to remove it or to put it back. So, and the second point is chimney is a defining feature. It's one of those things we all look at. So the fact that you have an outstanding resource and you have a chimney, or the chimneys themselves are a defining feature, certainly in this home it is. I struggle with this, and I come down to only one thought, and that is, can you actually see this chimney from the public right away? That's really the situation that I think that I'm dealing with personally. So the purist in me says that chimney should go back. However, I'm not at that point right now, because it's very difficult from the view that I've seen here to actually see what was the old chimney in its place. So I think in my mind, there may be some latitude to agree with the other two previous commissioners and allow the chimney to not be reinstalled. I think that's probably where I'm going to fall. Thanks.
Commissioner Kaplan, just want to make a couple observations. I think it's not just that the chimney was a character-defining feature, but I think the number of chimneys is a character-defining feature of the house. A lot of chimneys. Sometimes you look at a house and you're like, wow, must be a lot of fireplaces in there. But what I've also I've been looking at Google Street View, and the house right behind this house seems to have kind of matching chimneys. The style is very similar. There's two in the rear, so it's almost like a mirror image, which also makes it look like the chimneys say something about the pattern of development of the district, just looking at these two houses. So just a couple of observations.
Commissioner Dominiani?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I tend to agree with Commissioner Galway in that this is an outstanding resource. The chimneys were a character-defining element of this special resource. And I do actually think that this third chimney was visible from Brookfield Road. I understand there's vegetation and stuff in the way during the summer, but during the winter, you can see straight through diagonally across that backyard and see where that third chimney would have been. And just from a process standpoint, I know a few other commissioners have said this, but I think it bears repeating that we don't often like to look sort of retrospectively at work and demolition and changes that have been done, especially to character-defining elements, especially of outstanding resources. So from that perspective, I'm not happy that that chimney's gone, and I would probably favor a replacement, even if it's a faux chimney of some kind, in order to continue to maintain that character. Understanding it's no longer functional, understanding that it is tall and perhaps would have been sort of experiencing wind shear and that type of thing. Still worth it to keep a chimney in order to honor kind of the historic shape of that house as it should have been. Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Bond?
Thank you. Last but not least, I agree with Chair Burdett and Commissioner Dominiani. This chimney was visible, and the fact that the large addition that's been approved and constructed blocks some of that visibility doesn't negate the reason for it to be reconstructed.
We're going to have a motion on this, Commissioner Haynes. But my closing comments, my closing comment is there's a process here that you are very familiar with because you've been here a lot. It is not appropriate to not ask for permission but ask for forgiveness. That is not an appropriate method in front of us. Two of you know that. Don't do it again. Call the staff and let them know. Now, you've heard differing opinions from the commissioner, so we have a motion to make. Commissioner Haynes is going to make the motion, and then we're going to, and please keep it simple so we know which way we're voting about this, because we're going to do a roll call for this vote.
Sure. This is Commissioner Haynes, and I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve HOP number 1067931, revision 5 at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, based on the staff recommendation and condition that the chimney above the roof line must be replicated to match the dimensions and appearance of the historic chimney, and documents detailing the construction of the chimney must be submitted to staff before issue of final HOP approval.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
Okay, so now we're going to do a roll call, and I just want to make sure that I understand this, that we are voting to require the chimney to be replaced in kind per the staff recommendations.
That's correct.
Okay, so that would be a yay, and if you don't want that, your vote will be a nay, or you will abstain, starting with Commissioner Bond.
Yay.
Commissioner Dominiani, yay.
Commissioner Haynes abstains.
Chair Burdett, yay.
Could you review that again?
Okay.
The conditions?
This motion is to meet, or is is per the staff recommendation. So it is to replace the lost chimney. So yay is to replace the chimney, nay is to allow them to not replace it.
This is Commissioner Doman, it's nay.
Commissioner Galway, abstain.
Commissioner Kaplan, yay.
You get a tally?
The motion carries 4 to 1 to 2.
Carries to replace the chimney?
Yes, the motion passes.
Okay,
It's
so,
it's approved with the staff condition.
all right, so this, you have to replace this chimney.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll talk with staff about what you'll be doing going forward related to this, okay? Thank you. Okay.
So for this one, because the commission has, voted out case 1J at the consent, with the consent block, I would recommend, to keep this clean, that you make a motion to reopen the public hearing for that case, now that the applicant has showed up and wishes to testify to it, and then we can do the rest of the procedures, a staff presentation, hear from the applicant, all of that. Because we have, do we have the sign up to testify form from the applicant? Ms. Wilkes, have you filled out the form? Great, thank you. So we have the form.
Commissioner Haynes, would you like to make a motion to reopen 1J at 3923 Prospect Street, Kensington?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, this is Commissioner Haynes. I recommend, or I move that the HPC reopen case, hop number 1138162 at 3923 Prospect Street, Kensington.
This is Chair Burdett. I second the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. This case will be reopened. Is there a staff briefing or report?
Just real briefly, Madam Chair. So again, this is a hop to remove 5 trees in the Kensington Historic District. It's a primary one resource, but it actually covers 2 properties. It includes 3923 Prospect Street, but it also includes 3924 Baltimore Street, which is directly to the north. Again, the proposal is to remove 5 trees from the site. There are 3 maples, a mulberry, and a cherry tree. In staff's analysis, we recommended removing all 5 of the trees for the reasons cited in the staff report, but primarily for the removal of 2 of the maple trees. Staff recommended a condition to replant 1 tree to mitigate the loss of those hardwood species. Based on staff's recommendations, those could be anywhere in the project area, which encompasses those 2 addresses. And I will answer any questions that you have at this time.
I have a question about the replacement tree, maple. Does it need to be a large maple, or can it be a specimen maple or a dwarf?
We didn't identify a size for that. We're just encouraging, the continued fill-in of the tree canopy in Kensington to sort of reinforce the garden suburb appearance.
A dwarf would probably not be
Probably
appropriate.
not make it,
Okay,
but, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, the applicant, oh, wait a minute, did you? No, you just moved your hand, okay. The applicant can come forward, Helen Wilkes, and please turn on the mic, identify yourself and your relationship to this project.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Helen Wilkes, one of the owners with my husband at 3923 Prospect Street, and have been, this consideration of this application has been in process for probably a couple of years now with the neighbors behind. Meanwhile, it was originated because we have I claim it historic, but it's historic. It's more than 50 years old. The 3-sided stone compost pile that we inherited with the property when we bought it in the rear corner is being caved in. So with that discussion, because the tree belongs to the neighbor, we started talking about the other volunteer trees along our shared property line, and found that the three that are in the opposite corner are clustered in such a way that they're so crowded that it's not healthy for any of them. They're all tilting away from each other. And although the two maples that flank the mulberry are healthy, quote unquote, thank you. I was going to ask for this diagram to come back up. Yeah, so on the left upper corner there, they're very crowded and very unhappy coexisting together. And if I paid attention, I couldn't really see them for all these years. We've been there 36 plus years, so didn't pay much attention, but certainly have enjoyed the canopy. So those, it just seems clear that it's best for them to go under the circumstances. And then, so you can see the three-sided compost pile on the right. Okay, so I wanted to make here the case that I'm not able to accommodate any tall trees, certainly, on our property. You don't even see all the trees that we have there, but I sort of did my count, and on the right side of the drawing, you see a long row of trees, which is along the property line to our east. And I've quantified those trees. I can recount them if anybody wants to hear. I mean, we are veritably surrounded by forest where we are, and I hate to remove any tree. Dan knows this about me, and I've, oops, sorry. I really have dragged my feet on this, but on the left side, what you don't see is that there is a long row of trees along that left line, which is 8 feet. That line represents a fence as well as the property line. And there are 6 trees that are tall conifers that tilt toward our house. And so for many years, well, for all the years I've been there, we've shared the care of those trees. So in other words, I'm serious about trees, maintaining the trees. I've shared the care of the trees on the opposite side when they needed trimming and such. And in the time we've been there, we've also planted 14 trees which survived. There are maybe 3 or 4 that we've planted that didn't survive, but so there are 14 small trees around, scattered around the property. So I do not see a place on our property to plant a tree, and that's my main point. Now, I did get clarification here that Dan is recommending that we plant 2 trees to replace, and they can, so that was unclear. It sounded like you were saying 1 per tree being removed.
No, just 1 tree within 12 months
Total.
to mitigate the removal of trees 1 and 3.
Okay.
So
Okay,
just 1
so-
tree.
Okay, so the line that said 1 on the subject lots was, I'm sorry, it was unclear. And I did late put that question to you in an email, so I'm sorry for that misunderstanding. Okay, so then I think that it is feasible that the property owner on the other side, they have felt like they didn't have a good spot because they have young children in a yard, the yard, and they've got a lot of, their property is pretty built in terms of footprint. And the adjacent property owner who shares on the property line the cherry tree that's being requested to be removed, they may have a spot. We have not had the discussion. So, okay, the thing that I have clarification now. I thought, I was prepared to say that, this bamboo patch that I have to remove can receive, I think, a tall tree. But it's conjecture at this point, but I'm not to the point where we're able to, or ready to remove the bamboo. So I was here to talk about that. It sounds like I don't have to ask you for anything under the circumstances. I just needed to talk to you all. Sorry.
So this is Chair Burdett. So the staff recommendation or requirement is remove the 5 trees and plant 1 tree. Is that, is,
Correct. I mean, so the justification specifically for those trees is that they are impacting the existing privacy fence and a potential accessory structure, but are otherwise healthy. So that is why staff is recommending 1 tree to mitigate the loss of those 2. The other species have other issues. For example, the tree number 2 is a mulberry that's an invasive species. We recommend removal and don't necessarily require a tree to fill in for that. Additionally, tree number 4 is damaging the garden structure, and tree number 5 is immediately adjacent to a historic accessory structure as well. So removing those 2 trees will, help preserve the existing built environment in the Kensington Historic District. So we didn't find it was, we didn't think it was necessary to replant to mitigate the loss of those trees because they were causing active harm. So in that instance, and then also considering the proximity of those 2 maples to one another, we came up with a recommendation that a single tree would be sufficient. You can see the maple, two of the maples in question, and then the mulberry are all located in the northeast corner of the property, very close to one another. And while not arborist, we think that having 3 trees in there would crowd one another out, and having a single tree would allow it to grow to its full potential, I guess.
May I ask a question?
please do.
Is that, you stated that it would be on the subject lots, but does that mean that we get to choose then anywhere on either of the 2 properties?
Correct. We are not specifying a location, front
Got it.
yard, rear yard. Our position is just that a planting will help to reinforce and fill in the Kensington tree canopy.
Okay, got it. Are we done here?
Yeah, we don't have to do anything, right? Because
Well, you've reopened the public hearing.
okay.
So you do have to have a standalone motion
Motion.
and a second and a vote.
Okay. And we're basically we're going with staff's recommendation. Approve the hop with 1 condition. Okay. Commissioner Haynes?
Very well. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve hop number 1138162 at 3923 Prospect Street, Kensington, based on the staff recommendation and condition that the 1 hardwood canopy tree must be planted on the subject lot within 12 months to mitigate the removal of trees 1 and 3, as well as site plan identifying the location, species, and proposed trees must be submitted to staff prior to issuance of a hop approval.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Dominiani, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We have a preliminary, do we need to take a 5-minute break? No? Nope. Okay, we're moving on. Preliminary 2A, Smith Drive, Silver Spring National Park Seminary Historic District. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. Again, this is a preliminary consultation on Smith Drive in Silver Spring, which is in the National Park Seminary Historic District. Primarily, it concerns the area to the left here, which includes the villa and the castle. This is a painting done, I believe, in 1927, as identified in the staff report. So the 2 buildings are contributing resources to the National Park Seminary Historic District. Respectively, the buildings were constructed in 1904 and 1907, and this is to be reviewed under County Code, Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and there's a 2004 easement that covers all of National Park Seminary. So the applicant proposes to rehabilitate the castle building and rehabilitate the villa and construct a rear addition, construct 2 4-unit townhouses, and then complete additional site work, including tree removals, regrading, hardscaping, and road construction. And the project area is approximately within the boundary of the yellow line that was drawn in. This is a 2004 or 2001 HABS drawing, or HABS photograph of the site. First building is the castle. This was constructed as a sorority building in 1904. You can see it was accessed via a drawbridge for the main, it's actually the main bridge coming across the Glen from the train station. And you see it again on the right. These are undated historic photos, but we know the one on the left is after 1907 because the villa's there. So its current condition isn't quite so grand. It suffered from years of neglect, and it's a beautiful setting. You can see there's a significant amount of debris in there. Most of the windows are boarded up. We do see a couple windows that still have at least a sash in them. And then we see another wood sash up there that actually still looks like it has some glass in it. And then moving on, the villa was constructed in 1907. This rear portion, its demolition was approved in the 2004 easement. Apparently it was having water infiltration issues in the rear, which was threatening the foundation of the front portion. And what you see in the upper right is as it stands today. There's a large parking area around it, a statue. We'll get into those a little bit later. But you see the sort of severed, the rear portion of the building there. And then on the left is actually out the front door. That's another issue to be discussed. And then on the right, you see the rear of the building looking down the southern end. So again, the addition came out and sort of bent at about a 30-degree angle from the rear. And then this is in the front looking up at the building. You can see some stone walls there. And all of the windows are boarded up. And even though all of the windows are boarding up, the owner still has issues with break-ins and vandalism. So I included both of these site plans because the one on the right is a little busy, but you can see we have the original remaining portion of the villa with an addition off the rear. This is the castle building. And then this is the proposed location for the 4 townhouses. A number of roads will need to be built to access portions of the property to meet fire safety requirements, if nothing else. So again, these are the illustrated elevations of the proposed villa, a large addition off the back. It's sits a little bit lower than the historic tower, and including the sort of tower in the center, the addition is larger than the historic portion. The reason that I talked about the front door earlier is that they're proposing to put a large wraparound, they call it a deck. It's identified as a restoration, but staff hasn't seen any historic photos that document that. See, there's a bit of an arch in one of the historic photos, but I haven't seen the full extent of that yet. The castle elevations shows no exterior changes aside from windows and doors. There is a Juliet balcony that's going over the main entrance. That was where the drawbridge came in. But because the bridge that fed the drawbridge is no longer there, access is not provided at that level from the surrounding district or Glen. And then there has been some updates with the townhouses. They previously abandoned the Dutch townhouses and are just going with a German design. But they've run into some issues about the proposed location for that. I don't know whether it's the Category 1 forest conservation easement directly to the south of the area where the townhouses are built, but the owner and the applicant can bring those forward. But when we were on site on Monday, the applicant indicated that revisions were required for the townhouses to satisfy a building restriction, whether that was stormwater or the conservation easement. Maybe they can fill us in on that. So getting into the changes of the setting, there are a number of statues that are on the site and identified in the plans. We have the statue of Minerva, again, mentioned before. In the garden in front of the villa, which is to the west, there is a statue of Justice. There's an additional statue that is identified in the site plan that says to be relocated, or relocated statue of the townhouses. But we don't have any information about what statue that is and where its current location is or its current condition. So that's something that we'll need further information moving forward. So the objectives of this preliminary consultation excuse me, are to provide general feedback on the project, recommend revisions to the applicant, and identify additional materials to be submitted necessary to further evaluate this proposal. So regarding the castle, staff finds it to be in very poor condition, and I think the commissioners who evaluated it on site would agree with that. Again, the only alteration shown on the drawings of the castle is the installation of a Juliet balcony over the front doors, which again are not accessible from grade. And vehicular access will need to be built to satisfy fire safety requirements. Again, the proposal for the castle is a single-family residence. So in the staff report, staff identified several materials to further evaluate the proposal, including detailed documentation of the existing building conditions, existing and proposed floor plans, annotated proposed elevation drawings, detailed specifications for the treatment of the exterior walls, material specifications for the doors and windows, and any other intervention that's required to satisfy contemporary building codes. Regarding the villa, staff finds that demolishing the rear wing was approved in the 2004 easement. The condition of the interior materials, including doors and windows, is unknown. Staff initially found the size and massing and fenestration were inconsistent with the standards and provided that feedback in 2023. However, staff has found some additional information after the staff report was published, and the Maryland Historical Trust had reviewed the conceptual proposal in August of 2023 and recommended fenestration revisions, but found that the size and massing were not problematic and encouraged the applicant to proceed with that plan. Absent additional documentation, staff finds the proposed front deck is too large and runs afoul of standard 3, potentially creating a false sense of history. However, if we can document that and it's a recreation of a historic element, we just need to see documentation to prove that. So again, requested materials with the villa are similar to the castle. Detailed documentation of the existing building conditions, existing and proposed villa floor plans, proposed annotated elevation drawings, detailed specifications for the doors and windows, and also any intervention required to satisfy contemporary building codes. So again, regarding the townhouses, staff learned from the Maryland Historical Trust that the Dutch townhouse design had been abandoned and only the German design was moving forward. Additional changes in grade would require eliminating one floor from the northern of the 2 townhouse blocks. And then on Monday, we subsequently learned that one of the townhouse buildings was in an area where construction is not permitted, and that the placement of the townhouses or the configuration would need to be revised. Staff otherwise finds the design and size of the buildings is generally compatible with the character of the historic district and what had been previously constructed at the south end of the site. So regarding the townhouse, staff requests a revised townhouse or multi-unit housing proposal that needs to be developed and submitted for this portion of the project to move forward. And in light of the information provided by the Maryland Historical Trust and the applicant, staff finds that no further review of the townhouses is warranted at this stage, and the comments can be more generally related to the villa, the castle, and then site improvements. So staff finds that the proposed paving, while expansive, does not overwhelm the site and notes that there is extensive paving shown both in its current condition and the HAB's photographs. There is a wood chip path proposed through the garden to the east of the villa. Staff finds that incompatible with the formal landscape design. And the clearing necessary to construct the townhouses required removal of a significant number of trees. That also required a reforestation area. The proposed location for that was to the west of the villa in that formal garden. Staff finds that to be incompatible with the character of that location and recommends an alternate location. Additionally, staff does not find relocating the statues is appropriate. As pointed out in the staff report and the HAB's history of the site, they noted that military officials moved statues around throughout the site, whether that was out of boredom or inconvenience. I'm not really sure. They didn't identify a motive. But we don't have any information that suggests that these statues were relocated. In that case, we recommend leaving them in their historic location. So again, we recommend that the applicant conduct a conditions assessment and provide a treatment proposal for all of the statues in the project area. And additionally, provide details regarding the condition and proposed treatment of the historic stone walls and formal paths. Some of them seem to be in good condition and others seem to be crumbling. That is not inconsistent with what's found throughout the National Park Seminary Historic District in the areas that have been rehabbed already. So regarding both the castle and the villa, staff request HPC feedback regarding and recommendations regarding the treatment of the exterior, the completeness of the necessary materials identified by staff. So if there are additional materials that you would like to see, please identify those, and those can be included in the next preliminary consultation. Again, regarding site work, does the HPC concur with staff's recommendation that the applicant complete an evaluation of the stone walls and stone steps to the east of the villa? Does the HPC concur with staff's recommendation to maintain the statues in their existing location? Do you concur with the recommendation that the reforestation area is incompatible with the character of the site? And then what additional materials does the HPC require with the next submission? Staff recommends that the applicant not return until a coordination meeting with HP staff and MHD has been scheduled, and that there be a complete and updated set of submission drawings, including the latest MHD feedback review, so we're all working off of the same set of plans. Oops, I was supposed to put a new title in there, Rebecca, I apologize. So again, we already covered that one, and staff is happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions for staff?
Been a long meeting.
Commissioner Doman?
I found this very interesting. I did do a site visit on Monday. I appreciate the opportunity to get out there. I'm not familiar. Has this project been around for a while, or is this, I mean, just what we're considering now, the villa and the castle, has that been before the HBC in different years, or is this something brand new? What's kind of history on this project?
So, I mean, as you're aware, particularly from driving down Smith Drive, this is not the easiest site to access. The staff report did include a development timeline. Let me just pull that up so I can refer back to it. But because of the isolation of this portion of the property, it is, I mean, there's a reason that this has not been developed until now, while the rest of the National Park Seminary District has either been rehabilitated or is undergoing rehabilitation. So we received this as a preliminary plan and site plan in 2023. Let me, again, I want to pull up the dates to get these right. The application came in 2023 and then requested an extension, and again in December 2024. In October of this year, the planning board considered a third extension and required concrete steps demonstrating that the project was moving forward. One of those steps forward was to bring this project forward to the HPC as a preliminary consultation. As to whether prior to 2023 there were any other abandoned proposals to develop this, there were none identified in HPC's records. There are photographs that show portions of the interior of these two buildings in a 2008 staff site visit. The conditions were poor then, but because of their poor quality, there were limited use in analyzing the work proposed or evaluating the current condition after being exposed to the element for the last 17 years.
Now, this is, like I said, this is like the orphan area where the building on the castle is, kind of thing, and coming in off Smith Drive is not very attractive. I mean, it's a long road going back there. Is there any? Maybe you don't know, but when I did drive up to the main part of the seminary area up there, and I went down a road, and it looked like it could have gone through to the castle area. Has there ever been any talk about tying this in some other way than Smith Road? Smith Road is just really not attractive.
So, short answer is I don't believe so. Again, as noted in the staff report, all of the bridges were demolished to accommodate the construction of the Capitol Beltway. So it would have been, had the bridge on the left still existed, I think that we probably would have seen these buildings rehabbed first. Another report that I read indicated that there was sorry, let me pull this up. So from the Cultural Landscape Foundation, in discussing the threats posed to National Park Seminary, in 1972, Hurricane Agnes flooded the area and destroyed all of the stone bridges that went over the tributary to Rock Creek Park, which is at the bottom of the Glen. So between those two events, but between those two events, it really did isolate this portion of the campus from the rest of it.
Did when the other sections, the upper section I call it, when that was developed, did the HBC, HBC play a major role in approving the stylists of the buildings that were built?
Well, I mean, the infill houses, the townhouses, but I mean, the grand buildings that are all a variety of styles are exactly as built historically. So it was done so that, the young women of the seminary could travel the globe without having to leave the campus.
Well, it's certainly a different project. Okay.
Commissioner Doman, to answer your other question about the road, or what I think you were getting at, the forest conservation easement that Dan was describing that's on the southern portion off of Smith Drive, actually the forest conservation easement wraps the entirety of the north part of National Park Seminary. So you can't cut other roads in to get to this site, because there's the historic preservation easement on it, but then also these forest conservation easements on it as well. So Smith Drive that's it.
And there are road improvements that are proposed along with this as well. Mm-hmm. They're just, they're improving an existing road, which is why it was not really addressed in the staff report.
Any other questions? It's all very overwhelming, but having I'd just like to say that I have a soft spot in my heart for the seminary because when my husband and I moved back here in '99, we went to dances in the ballroom, and that was when the military still had control of it, and the whole place was very creepy. The entire campus was very creepy. But back in 2014, Montgomery Preservation, Inc. held one of their awards ceremonies in the ballroom, and by that point, that whole building was restored, and they were in the process of restoring various ones around. Some of the sorority houses had been restored, and really that, it all took place in less than 10 years. And that was just amazing what a nice job they've done over there. So other than that, if there are no other questions, we will ask the applicants to come forward. And sit down in front of a mic and make sure the light is green. You turn it on until the light is green, and then give your name and your relationship to this project for the record.
Good evening. My name is Mike Razavi. I'm a civil engineer with the company Rastec Associates Incorporated. We're the civil engineers preparing the site-related plans and documents for review and hopefully one day approval by the planning department and other various county agencies. And I mostly am here to just sort of present from a site standpoint mostly. I'm not an architect. I'm not an expert on the buildings as such, which I know is a major focus of this commission. But I've prepared something so that I don't forget the points really. The goal of the site plan is to provide a site design and maintain the character and history of the National Park Seminary and disturb as little of the site as possible. In addition, the other task of the site plan is to provide the infrastructure needed to support the development of the site and to obtain approval from the Montgomery County Planning Department, the Planning Board, and the various county agencies involved. This site is also covered by a historic easement. The site plan seeks to address several vital site design elements, and some of these elements are classified as follows. Planning and zoning. The site is in the PD 15 zone, which is a planned development zone, allowing medium high density development. The proposed site plan is the second phase of the overall National Park Seminary. This zone allows a maximum 15 dwelling units per acre, which constitutes 63 units. This parcel is approximately which is the focus of this project, is 4.23 acres, 4.23 acres. The site proposes to provide 8 townhouse units, 14 condominium units, and to preserve the existing castle structure as a single-family dwelling unit. The proposed number of units are the same as what was approved for the overall site during phase 1 of the project. Stormwater management. As required by the state of Maryland and implemented by Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services, stormwater management is a necessary design element of all projects that satisfy the United States Clean Waters Act. The National Park Seminary Phase 2 project proposes to comply with the requirements of stormwater management by providing design of practices that are close to proposed impervious area, whether they are roof areas of the proposed structures or surface impervious areas of the roads and driveways, essentially known as ESD practices, which are also specified as environmental site design practices. Some of these practices include bioretention, dry well, pervious concrete surfaces for driveways, low density, low impact design. Water and sewer. Water and sewer will be provided by providing connection to existing main lines that are owned and operated by the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, also known as WSSC. Sewer connection will be tied to one connection point, which is located to the west of the proposed development, parallel to the bottom of the existing stream. Water connections will be existing water main, will be to the existing water main and Linden Lane. So the water line will have to travel basically from Linden Lane all the way down Smith Drive to the project site, which is quite a ways. Maintaining stream buffer and forest conservation. A major element of this site is preservation of the stream buffer and wooded areas and forest areas. The proposed project, as shown on the site plan, strives to maintain the existing forest cover. The county environmental regulations have strict guidance in preserving the stream buffers. And that brings us to the point that staff mentioned about changes in the townhouse layout. Mostly that's due to removing structures and impervious elements outside of the stream buffer. In the previous design, there was minimal encroachment into the stream buffer, and planning staff has required that they be completely removed. One caveat to that is in 2005, when the project was approved by the planning department, and this project was a phase 2 part of it, there were impervious areas shown within the stream buffer. And currently the plan is allowed to keep those impervious covers in the stream buffer, but not to create any additional ones. Along with coordination with the planning department, we are preparing site plans to maximize preservation. Difficult choices have been made to maintain the stream buffer and forest covers. One example is to provide a longer route for the sewer connection to the main line. The result of this is less disturbance to the existing forest areas. As part of the site plans, we have amended the previously approved forest conservation plans to update these plans based on current proposed design of the site. Another aspect of the project requirement is fire and rescue access. A major design element is to provide access for fire and rescue. The site design incorporates the required access for fire truck and emergency vehicles as required by Montgomery County. The specific design requirements include 20-foot wide vehicular access. Furthermore, vehicular turnaround areas are required for emergency vehicles to comply with those requirements. These are some of the major elements that are in the works as part of the site development plans. Also, just to mention, at this time, there are 3 separate applications being considered by the planning department. One is a site plan, one is a preliminary plan amendment, and one is a site plan amendment, which is really a amendment for the forest conservation that was previously approved. So all these 3 are kind of in the pot and they're going together. We have been to the Maryland Historic Trust a few times. We've provided site plans to them. We've made 2 or 3 separate submissions, and that's also still in the works.
And the owner has not identified yourself. Turn on your mic.
John, you have to push until it gets green. Yep.
Okay. My name is John Jin. I'm the manager of Manova Corporation, which owns this property. Yeah. I think my site planner has pretty much presented what I want to say. If you have any questions, I can answer when I can, all right?
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you for allowing us to visit the site the other day. It was a big treat to be in that part of the campus and to see what work will be done and what you've done to stabilize the properties as they are. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Doman.
Well, you gave testimony, and I was wondering if that can be made available to the commissions. I mean,
absolutely.
You have it written out, and I heard everything you said,
Mm-hmm.
but if I could get a copy of it, can a copy be made to the staff, and then the commissioners can get a copy of your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to go over it again in a little bit more detail, if I could.
This is Chair Burdett. Can staff pull up on the monitor the, what we're actually supposed to do tonight?
Sure, there are a lot of things, and I will say as well, I had mentioned this in the work session, we would normally not bring a preliminary consultation to you all to consider like this, because there are way too many items here that are nowhere kind of near fully formed for your consideration. It was a request from, a planning board deadline that the applicant is trying to make. So we are trying to be considerate of that. For example, we would not have brought this forward at all with, these inconsistencies, even with the review from the Maryland Historical Trust. So for what you are here to do tonight, if there are any general feedback items you would like to give, for example, the elevations are all schematic. We don't have a lot of detailed information for you to comment on. So if you have any general feedback about the additional information that staff has requested for your review, if there's anything that you see as a red flag here, even with the limited amount of information, that would be helpful for the applicant to know. And again, if you have anything additional to what the staff has asked for, and we'd be happy to go through each item one at a time since there are so many. Would you like us to do that? Maybe we could start with the castle about what staff is requesting and see if you have any comments about this or anything, any questions.
Okay,
I ask a
Commissioner
question?
Doman has a question.
No, this is an Historic Preservation Commission. A lot of the issues seem to deal with forest management, stream management, water. Is that something we would be looking at and commenting on, or is that's more for the Planning Commission?
That is all for the planning board. So while that is useful information for you to know, for example, what some of their project parameters are, like they can't move a stick of townhouses to this area because it will cross the stream buffer. That's useful for you to know. But the rest of it, stormwater management, all of those things, none of that is really within your purview, except in so much as the design of the stormwater management is something that you have to approve ultimately with the HOP.
Can I say something else? Part of this presentation was twofold. One is to familiarize you with the project, because obviously moving forward you'll be involved. Secondly, my aim was to point out a lot of the various elements of the site that affect the development of the property and renovation, rehabilitation of the existing buildings that are pretty much run down right now.
Understood. I think based on staff's recommendations, we're going to look at each one of the castle, the villa, the sites that we have to, look at what they're going to request for materials for future preliminaries to us that'll be more pertinent to our, review, and kind of leave it at that. And at the end, because this is a preliminary, we can just state our opinion or support or whatever about this project. Kind of cover all the bases. So let's start right now with the staff requested materials for the castle. Is there anything, does anybody have anything else that should be included at this stage, knowing that Commissioner Dominiani?
I think I have one thing with regards to the castle. Having not visited this week with you all during the site visits, and maybe this is not relevant, but I would think that detailed specifications are required, yes, for the treatment of exterior walls as well as the roof, as I think would be useful for us too. If we could add that in terms of materials to request.
Yes, so yeah, add specified materials for the roof. There was some discussion out on the site of that at the castle, the roofs have been repaired and replaced currently to prevent water infiltration. So whether that continues with the same materials to the finish, that's one thing, but right now they do have roofs on them. as opposed to previously. So any other issues for the castle? Yes, Commissioner Bond?
Thank you. When we were out there on Monday, the stucco finish on the castle, you can tell, has been repaired many times. So I think it would be really advantageous for some material analysis to try to figure out what is the correct stucco finish to go back for the castle. Castle and villa have two very different treatments going on.
There's no repair as far as the walls are concerned with the villa. But
We're talking about the castle.
The castle,
Yeah.
yes, because the stucco part, there are two parts of it. One is masonry.
Right.
The other is the stucco. And the stucco is falling off, peeling off, especially in the back that you probably didn't go in the back to see. Because the wood structure that supports the stucco were all rotten. I would say about 1/5 of the structure in the back, falling off, okay?
Right,
So to the point, under the prompt of Maryland Historical Trust, we have to stabilize. Otherwise, there's nothing there. It's going to collapse.
Right, so I'm suggesting some analysis so that when you restore
Yeah.
your stucco, we get the right historic
the
stucco
kind of
condition
stucco,
back.
yeah. The kind of stucco material is we follow the same kind of way of construction with the stucco. That is with the mesh, with stucco, then throw gravel onto it. That's actually consistent with the villa and the castle.
And
So-
that's the kind of information we'll want to see in the
Yeah.
future, is the technical information related to the materials that will be used for repair, restoration, or new materials as well. So we're just kind of making a grocery list right now of the things that we're going to need from you in the future, whenever that comes. So we're not really questioning as much what you're doing now to stabilize. It's really going to be what you're going to do in the future
Yeah.
to get this thing to an occupiable status. Any other questions or comments on the materials, staff requested materials for the castle? If not, next one, staff requested materials for the villa. This is pretty much the same as what we had for the castle. And I think, again, proposed annotated elevation drawings that also indicate materials that will be replacing any of the degraded, especially balcony materials. Commissioner Doman?
One of the, what I call a nice design feature of the villa is the balcony on the second floor, I guess, and it's got the interesting little lattices that goes around. Instead of having balustrades going up and down, it has a little bit of detail to it, which I think looks pretty nice. So then the question is, are you going to retain that? Will that become a operable balcony? It's obviously, I don't know if I'd want to walk on it, but it looks like it's got supports underneath it, like it's cantilevered out a little bit. And I'm sure that the doesn't meet the building code for no opening bigger than 4 inches, anything like that. But it is a nice feature, and I hope that that's maintained. I was wondering what your thoughts are and how you're going to handle that.
Well, I think it's a little preliminary at this point to get into that level of detail. They do have to maintain the balcony, whether it's with new construction or existing construction to replace,
Well, my
because of the
point is I'd
existing-
like to see it saved. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, that's, I mean, that's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
But again, that's that kind of, how are you going to do it? What will the materials be? How will you satisfy contemporary building codes for a balcony, so forth? We will want, the staff mentioned the large terrace deck.
Oh, yeah.
So again, if you do have historic
We do
material?
have, actually based on the pictures that presented to us by a local historic preservation
Oh, the seminary?
organization. Yeah.
Yeah, the seminary group.
Save Our Seminary, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna want a copy of those
I
photographs.
tried, I'll look for it.
Look
I
for
mean,
it, yeah.
They sent us some of those pictures.
Okay.
And we discovered that that's the way it should be constructed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And out in the field, the other day, you'd mentioned that there might be a way to build a sort of kind of drawbridge back to the castle.
Yes.
So if that idea gets developed, you'll want to provide some information about that as well. Okay, next. Townhouse materials. Okay, so this is all new construction.
For this, I'm sorry, we should just zoom right past the townhouses.
yeah, just zoom, yeah, 'cause-
We'll go to hardscaping in sight.
Very good. Statues, and also treatment of historic stone walls and former paths. So you mentioned 3 statues. I was kind of curious if there might be more buried out in the shrubbery or the overgrowth out there, or if anybody's done a count of how many statues there were.
That's
and-
all you have, 3.
Just the 3? Okay.
They're all goddesses. I think if you look carefully, the back of the statue are all flat. Okay, so this is what I learned from the Save Our Seminary organization. They said they were rescued, they were kind of salvaged from some building that was torn down in New York.
Ah,
So they are not really the original kind of statue set up for that place.
oh, really?
The staff considers those character-defining features of the site.
Okay.
So I would recommend that they be treated as such.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so,
sure.
yeah.
So we like those statues.
Okay, so yeah, you're going to keep them, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
but they should be in the same place, except for one, which will be in the driveway. Okay, so we moved it a little bit to where the circular drive is, but right in the center, so
Okay.
they won't block the traffic.
Also out there, while we were out there, we could see the remains of many of the circular walls, curved walls, and some of the paths, stone paths that are still, you can still see them. So when you come back, we'll want to see how you've saved them and the paths and what you're doing to restore them, or what you're going to do with them. That's basically it. But the existing as they are and what your plans will be for that. So, and again, condition assessments with all of this and treatments for them. Next. And then feed that, site work. Okay, so staff requests HPC feedback on staff's recommendations for a complete evaluation of stone walls and stairs to the east of the villa. I think we concur with staff's recommendation. Does the HPC concur with staff's recommendation to maintain the statues in their existing locations? I think we need to learn a little bit more about their existing locations versus their original locations and the situations that are going to come up with driveways and the like. But that, again, can be addressed in the future. HPC concur with staff's finding that the proposed reforestation area is incompatible with the character of the site. That's interesting.
We can go back and focus on that a little more.
Okay.
So again, in the site plans that we have, the formal garden with the Statue of Justice here is identified as a reforestation area. Let me pull that up. So it's the landscape plan, which I did not upload as part of the proposal. So the objective is to have like a wood chip path run through here to connect to these stairs, because one of the objectives in the master plan is to have interconnectedness through utilizing the existing paths. And they were utilizing this open space as identified reforestation. Again, it's, I'm not sure what the forest conservation requirements are, if they need to do all of that replanting in the same area. But historically, this was, you know, an open area. It's formally bordered by those stone walls that you observed on the site. And we found that that was, you know, incompatible with the character of that specific area, and that an alternative location needed to be identified. Again, that's a known issue in part because the forest conservation revision is also one of those three things that are coming through the planning board.
This is Chair Burdett. Does HP have any opportunity to push back against the forest conservation area, considering we're dealing with a historic site that's heavily forested?
Well, I mean, again, we're recommending that not happen, and we're soliciting, you know, your feedback or concurrence with that. And you know, this is sort of it's not moving forward immediately with the planning board, so there's an opportunity to make those revisions and to work with the natural resource inventory team to make sure that an alternative solution is made.
Yeah, I mean.
That is one of these things, like we do bring preliminary consultations to the HPC, ideally multiple times before your planning board hearing, to precisely flush out these issues. Nobody wants to go to the planning board for something that they have to approve, which is the forest conservation plan, with an item that is going to kill the HOP application. And under your authority, under 24A, you have the approval or denial authority via your permit about what happens with these character-defining landscape features within the historic district. So if you think that this is something that is potentially, you know, the staff thinks this is a red flag. If this is something that you may potentially deny, that is information that the applicant should know now so that it can be addressed by the staff as they're moving towards their forest conservation plan at the board.
Definitely. I mean, definitely that this is a red flag issue, because there are two competing issues. One is the historic nature of the campus in its prime, with the paths, with these, you know, formal gardens, versus the county's desire to have a more forested area. There has to be a balance between these two. And considering how overgrown this entire site is now, that there must be some flexibility, just like there is on the ravine. You know, it needs to be a watershed, but that doesn't preclude, you know, doing some things related to the formal gardens and the ravine and the slope to make it an interesting place that can withstand a watershed event. Okay. Back to what we're supposed to be doing? We are at.
I mean, that was sort of the limit. I mean, again, it's what materials do you want to see with the next submission? You know, as Director Ballo pointed out, that what we have for elevations are sort of illustrative and are not annotated. You know, does the HPC want to see a historic structures report before we see detailed elevation and plan drawings of the buildings? It's sort of, you know, your opportunity to make some of those directives to the applicant as far as the order of operations and how you want to evaluate the proposal going forward. And, you know, again, staff will continue to work with MHT and the applicant to identify those things, so we're not doing. So we're moving forward in the same manner and looking at the same sets of plans, so we're not providing recommendations that run counter to one another.
Understood. Commissioner Bond, you have some expertise.
I think a historic structure report would be incredible to have here. I mean, we have to make critical decisions about windows. Certainly single pane doesn't seem to be the right way to go for the castle, but we don't have any historic documentation to back it up.
And Commissioner Kaplan, I hate to put you on the spot, but we'd also like your opinion because you have some experience.
I agree with most everything I see in the staff report. You know, I went on the site visit, which was great, but then I'd never been to the district, so I went back the next day to the main part of it and went down to the ravine up to the, you know, the construction fence and it really kind of gave me a sense of how this property is part of a larger district and doesn't just sit on its own. And just because of that, just the idea of not putting trees in that open area, not moving that justice statue, which is supposed to greet people as they come up the stairs, is important. But yeah, I concur with all the conversations I'm hearing.
Thank you. Thank you both.
I think it would be nice to have kind of detailed site plans of what's there now and what you're proposing, so that when there are things, because I think we want to stick as close as we can to the original layout. But if there are things you're proposing, like moving kind of that traffic circle and things like that, we can kind of clearly see what you're wanting to change, and you can kind of justify why you want it to be changed, and then we can make decisions based on kind of clear existing and proposed. And the existing, you should show what kind of historic.
So today we do have pretty detailed site plans of what's proposed. I mean, we recognize that they'll need to be revised to address the townhouse issue, but yes, it would be really, really helpful to have existing site plans, which were not included in the submission.
So, yes, an existing conditions assessment, materials that are anticipated or we know there are revisions going to be coming. In general, I think the commission will agree that we are fully in support of this project, look forward to it, and feel that the owner is approaching this in a thoughtful and historic, or a thoughtful manner related to the history of this campus and the buildings themselves. And we look forward to you coming back for another preliminary with a lot more information to provide to staff. And it would probably be helpful to get some more information from the Save Our Seminary group to provide to us, because they do have quite a lot, and it would help inform our understanding of these buildings and the campus, and what is, when you bring in the detailed site plan of what's existing and what's proposed, to help our understanding of what was there, what it was like, and what you're trying to recreate with these restorations and rehabilitations.
Madam Chair, for the next preliminary consultation, would it also be helpful for the applicant team to bring their project architect and their historic preservation consultant?
Yes.
Which I'm assuming they have on board. You do? Okay,
Then
great.
yes, next preliminary, bring them with you, and because we would really like to talk to both of them and hear their reports. And possibly you, but you may be done by then, hopefully. All right.
Happy to be here.
Okay, then thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
again. Thank you very much for letting us get out there. It's always a treat to do a site visit, and we really look forward to watching this project move forward, and hopefully quickly for you guys, so that, planning doesn't hold you up forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have no idea what that is. Does anybody know what that caldera is? No, don't click on it. It's gonna, no. Oh, it's in Kenya. I'm always so scared we're gonna kick on this.
Next on our agenda is draft porch floor design guidelines, and why are we?
We need you to approve them.
Ah, okay.
And we do have updates that Devin's going to present from the last time you guys heard the draft, so we wanted to just go over those really quickly.
this is the third review for the draft illustrated design guidelines. We went over this first round of revisions at a previous meeting, and now I'm just going to go over the second round of revisions. So there was a comment, recommendation to reach out to other counties for product photos. We're in process and can add those as we receive them. Another comment about adding specific product recommendations back in. My only note is that the HPC does not specifically recommend products, but instead creates guidelines for review of new products as they evolve, so we haven't added any product recommendations back in. There were multiple comments about the feasibility of using reclaimed wood on page 8. We've maintained this section, but we swapped out the photo. There were multiple comments about changing the name of traditional wood on page 8. It's been changed to untreated wood. There's a comment about removing redwood as an example. We've replaced redwood with western red cedar, as numerous Maryland lumber yards carry it. And then we replaced the photo with a photo of Douglas fir. There were multiple comments about the use of the Janka hardiness rating. We've retained it, finding that it's a pretty objective measurement and is commonly used. A recommendation to include treatment and clearing underneath the porch and the methods to improve long-term material protection and preservation, and that text was added to page 12, and an additional photo was added to page 17 to help illustrate that. Comment about cropping an image, the image was cropped. And then a comment about emphasizing that the wood species list is not a recommendation, and so the language on page 9 was altered to reflect that. So those are all of the revisions, and I'm happy to go through the guidelines again or answer any questions as the HPC prefers.
Any questions? And please, let's not beat to death issues we've already discussed.
I got new issues to beat to death.
Oh, God. All right, Commissioner Dolan, keep it brief.
They're new issues. No. I have some problems with your photos that you stuck in there, okay?
Okay.
And I don't know if I want to go through them all right now, because they're kind of picky, I guess I would have to say.
Well, this is it. We're looking for a vote tonight. And unless, again, you'd like to make more comments and it can't get a vote, and the chair would like to bring it back for a fourth go-round. So I would say get picky.
Get picky. One of them, now I printed out your new page number, and it's a little bit different than the old one was, okay? So I printed out your new one, and on page 14, yes, this is picky, okay? Your photograph in the upper left-hand corner shows somebody using a table saw, and they're cutting a board. And they have a hand on each side of the board, okay? That's not the way you cut a board on a table saw, okay? There are such things as a T-square that fits in a little groove, and you slide the wood through. Using two hands like this, you can pinch the blade, and it'll come back at you. This is not a good photograph. That's it's kind of picky, but anyway.
You can't see the T-square on the back.
I see two hands on there. What do you mean? I see two hands on it. So, I mean, it can be dangerous on a table saw. Let me see. I hate to get into all this, but in my conversation with, was it Glenboro and New Jersey, the Historic Preservation Commission, they actually require that decks be painted, okay? And we have basically come back here and said that all this tongue and groove paint, all this tongue and groove should be painted all 6 sides, which I agree with all that, okay? Generally, they will say that it should be painted with an oil-based paint, okay? And after you install it, then you come back and then you paint it all over again, so that a significant visual feature of a historic deck that it is a painted deck. That's what I'd like to see, kind of thing. As a defining feature of a historic deck, it should be a painted deck.
Do you have language that you would like to strike and specific language that you would like to add? So we don't have to guess. No, I'm serious, and that's what we're here to do. But that's what would be most helpful for I think all of us, for the staff at least at this point. If you could say, strike this, you want to add this as an underline, and then the commission can discuss.
I might.
Okay.
Somewhere.
No, I get you. I totally get you. Just that would be most helpful for us at this point.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or if the commissioners would like to discuss that before he offers any specific language.
So it's Commissioner Galway. I think, is the painting of the wood something that is character defining? I think we have to answer that first, you know, because I'm not sure it is. I think we often see it painted, but if you know, is that really necessary? Not from a protection standpoint, but from a historic standpoint.
Well, as I said, there are other historic districts that have commented on this, and they do consider decks as they should be painted. I mean, obviously it's for protection. Obviously it makes it look better. Obviously, all kinds of reasons for the thing. But generally, on a historic deck, it would have been a wood that would have been common in the area, a pine or an oak or something like that, in which case you'd want to paint it. And painting it makes it last better.
Some of the difficulties we have, and I'm familiar, obviously, with the HPC or the HDC that you reached out to, is that we're trying to implement this countywide. And we have historic districts that date from the early 1800s up to historic districts now that date from the 1950s, and sites that span in between, you know, almost 275 years of history now in the sites that we're trying to capture with these guidelines. So it's always this kind of balance between being specific enough to help the applicants, but not so specific that we hamstring certain districts that we're also trying to regulate. We think that strikes a good balance here. The HDC that you're referring to has a very specific time frame that they are dealing with their resources that we're not here. That's all I'd offer as additional food for thought.
I think I agree with Ms. Ballo in that we do have everything from the early 1800s to the 1960s now.
Yeah.
So the language cannot be so restrictive that it's making it difficult for a new community, a new historic district. You know, again, some of these districts have their own guidelines. And for the areas and the properties that are not part of a historic district with its own guidelines, the language should be a guide, not a restriction or fixed parameter.
I would offer as well, if there's, you know, as you're dealing with individual hops, like we've said in the past, we regulate, you know, painting of masonry in most places, but sometimes not. You know, sometimes it's appropriate to paint the masonry. And you always look at these on a case-by-case basis. So if in any case you feel that a specific material treatment of a feature is what is appropriate for that feature, you can do that. This is, you know, as Commissioner Haynes, I think, talked about a lot of times when we were doing the design guidelines, you want to start off at a certain level of permissiveness, and then you can kind of go from there with it. So you can be more restrictive in any particular case. If you think that for a particular character-defining feature for a porch, the treatment of it is that it needs a particular, you know, and they're proposing paint of a certain kind, just like our discussion about the house wrap with the siding, right? And you know from your experience, it's going to have to be painted in a certain way, and there's going to have to be a certain treatment for that paint. It is perfectly appropriate for you to condition that hop with that, even if the guidelines are silent. on it. This is just a policy document to help you.
Okay. I was looking at the figure on page 10, and it has thermally treated wood. Now, this deck that you see here, I mean, I guess it's thermally treated, I can't tell, but it says after 2 years, but it's not tongue and groove, and there's gaps between it. Is that what we want to show in this picture? I mean, I thought our topic was wood for porches, in which case it should be a tongue and groove example here, shouldn't it?
These are porch and deck guidelines, so there's some language earlier about what we need for porches and what we need for decks. The two examples on here are both decks. They're not tongue and groove.
And the one just below it, pressure-treated wood on the front deck. Again, this is not laid perpendicular to the house, and it is gapped. Is that, I mean, sometimes the pictures doesn't seem to be telling the story that you want to tell.
That particular picture is on a non-historic addition to a resource, but the truth is I just don't have a photo of pressure-treated tongue and groove on the front of a historic resource that I have a license to, but I can certainly keep that in mind as I continue to look.
So the purpose of those two pictures is to show this is what a thermally modified wood deck looks like. This is what a pressure-treated wood deck would look like, just to give people an idea of how it might weather over time, particularly the thermally modified wood one, and just what that might look like. It doesn't speak to, it is this type of wood on this type of resource, and it was approved under these types of circumstances. It really is meant to be illustrative, but if you find it confusing.
Right, in the other photograph on the right side there, you have tongue and groove. I mean, sometimes I'm not sure if you're talking about just wood or if you're talking about tongue and groove. I mean, the pictures don't necessarily seem to tell the story, whereas the pictures on the right side are telling you, yes, this is what we have to have. It's got to be tongue and groove, and it should look like this.
Well, this page is about pressure and heat-treated wood and PVC and composite decking. So it's to just show this is what those things look like, because people might not know what a thermally modified wood deck looks like, or they might not know what composite looks like. And then we use the opportunity in the captions to just explain a little further. But again, if you find it confusing, the way that we've, entitled the captions, I would ask the HPC to discuss that. If the body finds the images confusing, if you would like us to strike these images, or if you have additional text for the captions to help clarify, if you could offer that for us.
This is Chair Burdett. I would say, related to the thermally treated wood, is having some experience on a project that used it. This photograph is helpful simply because it's showing what happens to the wood when it is exposed for a couple of years, because when it goes in, it's new and brown and beautiful. And within 2 years, anything exposed to sun is going to gray out, while things that are in the shade maintain their brown color, and people need to be aware that's what it's going to look like. So I think that's informative to say, here's a deck, thermally modified wood. It doesn't look like, in 2 years, it's not going to look like that brochure that the salesman's given you. It's going to be gray. And I think that's worth saying that. The same with pressure-treated wood also grays out. And it's worth saying that, or, and that's what it's showing, is it's like, this is thermally treated wood 2 years after installation. It's not sitting there discussing, the way it's cut or milled or anything else. It's just talking about what it is and what it looks like after 2 years.
Well, again, this is, I guess, the bottom picture is, you call it a deck, but if the boards are separated with an air gap between them, then the pressure-treated wood is just fine. If you're looking at a pressure-treated board that's tongue and groove, it has to be painted. You know, it's just, if you're gonna show a picture of pressure-treated decking or porch boards running perpendicular to the house, it should show a picture that has tongue and groove. Could be pressure-treated, but it should all be a painted picture. It should be a picture that shows it being painted.
That is not what we were trying to illustrate in this section. So we do have images of tongue and groove wood flooring, but this is a section specifically about, again, what thermally treated wood looks like and then what pressure-treated wood would look like on a deck, on decking. And this is a deck, so as you said, it's been installed correctly for decking.
Yeah, okay. To carry this, I'm going back to the bottom picture here.
Which page?
You know, we're on the page right now. This is
Okay.
page 11. And it says it's composite decking often has manufactured that does not replicate the look of wood. These edges should be covered, okay? And then if you go to page 14, in the picture on the lower left-hand side, it says recommend a composite decking with paintable edges that mimic the look of wood. So are you saying that if we have material that's painted, then it mimics wood, but if it's not painted, it doesn't mimic wood?
The photo on the left is a product that you guys approved this year without a board covering it, finding that this particular product with this particular sample did mimic the look of wood when painted, versus the product on the right, which does not mimic the look of wood even when painted. So that's what this is trying to illustrate. The policy is saying that it needs to mimic the look of wood at the edge. If it can't, it should be covered, and if it can, and that is a case-by-case determination, which is why we don't make specific product recommendations in this, is the HPC reviews every new product under these guidelines. If you guys find that it does replicate the look of wood, under these guidelines, you would be emboldened to approve it.
So the photograph that's on the top right, it says not recommended. If that was painted, you wouldn't see anything. It'd look exactly like the one that's on the lower left-hand side. I mean, it's a tongue and groove, and we painted, and I don't see how you can tell the difference between the two. And this one isn't painted, so you see an edge on it. But if you painted it, does that make it acceptable then?
If it looks like real wood.
If it looks like real wood, and it's a different material in the upper right. So to be fair, I don't think you can tell about whether or not it would look appropriate painted, because you don't have that in front of you to see. And you've often found when, we bring these material samples to you to look at.
I see them.
Right. So you would have to look at, we would not recommend that you approve that based on that photo. Even if someone brought you a photo of that material and painted it, we would recommend that they bring you the sample and paint it, and then you can look at it, in the flesh. So I think that this is actually illustrating the point that we're trying to make.
Well, I don't see how you can tell. I mean, the picture you selected here, you say it's not not recommended, but my God, I could finish that off and put a coat of paint on, you'd never know it. I mean, does that make it acceptable then?
This is from an application that you guys denied, so finding that this was not a replacement material based on more photos and evidence, and the one we're recommending is from something that you approved. So,
Anybody coming forward to do their porch with a compatible or non-compatible material is going to bring you a sample of what they want to use. And at that point, the staff and the commission can sit there and say, this sample here, you're not going to paint it, or are you going to paint it or not? And depending on that and what it looks like, you're going to say, no, this is not acceptable, or yes, this is. But it's showing, they're trying to show options or varieties that would not be compatible or would be compatible, depending on how they're finished, depending on what the material is, depending on what the cut looks like. And then it's all going to be determined in person here by the commission based on staff's recommendation, who's looked at it more closely than we have. So, I mean, you're splitting hairs here.
I know.
I should also say that the Coma product on the left doesn't void the product warranty when it's painted, whereas the AZIC material on the top right does void the product warranty, which determines whether or not they can paint it and does impact our approval or denials.
Okay, but there are other, again, this is AZAC, but there's Eritis and, I mean, there's a lot of other products that would meet this criteria that you couldn't tell the difference between that and wood and should be recommended,
Okay,
right?
we've noted your comments. Unless the rest of the commission would like to say, strike X, insert Y, for the record, we can just, the minutes, we can just have the comments noted. Again, unless people want to discuss. And if not, if the chair, if you'd like to.
Well, I think I've said what I wanted to say, and I think you know where I'm coming from anyway, because
Yeah.
I said this many times before anyway, so. Just don't think the photographs are applicable to some of the narratives, that little captions that fit underneath them. So that's my comment. And if I had known you wanted me to give you a specific line item that to be inserted, I could have done that, but I didn't come prepared to do that.
Okay.
So I'll be quiet from here.
No, I mean, again, it's for all the commissioners to know, for the recommended treatments, we try to include options that you have approved, options that you've looked on favorably. For the not recommended, things that are the cases you've denied or analogous ones to that. Yeah, that was where we were coming from with the illustrations.
Okay.
Okay. You want us to give an okay on this?
We would like a motion to approve and adopt these, and then we can finish them up.
Well, I'm not sure we're ready. I mean, Commissioner Doman, do you wish to have a shot, give you time? Should we reconsider this at the next meeting to allow you time to submit your edits?
The answer is no. I'm willing to move ahead right now. I think we've discussed this, and I think everybody knows where I stand on it anyway. So something, I guess, is better than nothing. So,
Any of the commissions have any comments on the context of and language of?
I just have one brief comment, which I don't think will affect our ability to approve this right now. It's just quick things about formatting, I guess, to make it very readable, which I think is not going to affect, like I said, our approving this. On other guidance documents like this I'd seen, there might be like a symbol, like a check for recommended and an X for not recommended. You might consider superimposing those over the corner of each image, wherever that's appearing, because otherwise it's kind of like a grid of photos and it might not be readily apparent to someone who's not familiar with looking at policy documents, kind of like what is recommended versus not. And then finally, I think page 17 is missing the footer and page number.
I got something else.
Got it, thank you.
Thanks, that's it for me, and I think I would not have a problem approving it as it is, and these guys can kind of like make their adjustments and sort of make the formatting consistent on their own time. Yeah.
Thank you, that's very good. The check and X is a very good recommendation. Commissioner Doman.
One other, you can't get rid of me. So anyway, on page 5, I believe, you have this drawing, and this is Montgomery County, and it shows all the historic districts and the, what we call master plan sites, okay? This was not in, like, in the earlier versions, in June version, it wasn't in there. Then it shows up in here. I don't think it belongs in here. This is a policy document about wood or guidelines for selecting wood. This belongs in the policy, whatever it is, 24-3 or something like that. To me, this is a confusing diagram that talks about Montgomery County and the sites. It has nothing to do with guidelines for selecting wood for historic decks. And it wasn't in there originally. I think maybe it got stuck in to fill an empty page or something. I would like to see the document, this particular picture removed, but I think it's valuable and it belongs in the policy statement rather than in the guideline statement.
The policy statement is a Word document. It's a white paper. This is your only opportunity to add anything illustrative to that. So if you think there should be a map of the historic sites and districts, it can only go in this document.
I don't see any reason for it here. That's my comment.
I guess what I'm saying is, just to clarify, you don't see the reason for the map at all in discussing the policy, or you don't see a reason for it on this page?
I don't see it from this is guidelines. What's our document called? Porch flooring design guidelines. And what does this have, what does a map of Montgomery County have to do with porch flooring design guidelines?
The porch flooring and design guidelines are applicable in all of the sites and districts in Montgomery County, and that's what this map is attempting to illustrate. So we can add a caption to this stating this is the map of the sites and districts, and, you know, go look up your, I mean, we do say up there you can go look up your house. We could add a caption to that saying that's what this is, if you think the caption would help explain what this image is. But to your point about we can't add this to the policy. The policy is just a Word document that's a white paper. It doesn't have any illustrations. If you want illustrations, this is it. This is the place. So would you like us to clarify this or remove it? And then what do the rest of the commissioners think about that?
This Commissioner Galway, I mean, you say here under the individual master plan sites subcategory paragraph that the resources have been individually placed on the master plan, blah, blah, blah. Wood is an appropriate material to maintain the historic sites integrity, appearance, materials, and construction methods. So I think what I'm thinking here is that you're using this map to convey the fact that buildings in this particular area notably would want to be considered. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. And maybe there's a caption that you could add on the image to maybe pull it together a little bit. But I think personally, I don't find it offensive.
This image is taken from our public GIS, so I think maybe a good resolution would be a caption that would help link readers to our public GIS so they are aware of where they can find out if their resource is within this map, if the policy is applicable to them. Would that be a
Yeah, well, I mean, this is
option?
This is a very high level, and all these little pink dots on here. If you go to the what do you call it, the locational atlas to look this up, you can get all kinds of information. But you can't get it from here. You need to go to another document to find out, am I really in this particular orange pink dot right there?
Well, and that's what she's saying, is if they put the reference to the GIS, then someone can access a specific site by just, you know, closing in on it and clicking on it. And they can figure out where their property is. I think this works very well to show the extent of our county, and that it stretches from very dense suburban developments all the way up to up to the Frederick County line, where it's still very rural. So I think it's helpful in helping people understand that there's a lot of variety in this county when they may not actually understand the extent of the county.
To Chair Burdett's point, I think that perhaps having that caption, which refers people to the GIS or the locational atlas, as well as describing what the pink and what the red is on here would be, in my opinion, a perfect use, and I think that'll end up helping. I know it appears that many of these captions are intended to be maybe like readable by an e-reader or accessible or something, and that'll help make this part of that document more accessible too. I think it's just gonna like scratch everyone's itch.
Yeah, this also will go through the communications department before it is online, so some of those graphic issues and readability issues will be addressed as well.
All right, can we have a motion, please, from somebody?
One last thing before we
Okay.
make a motion. On page 10, it's a grammatical issue when you're captioned thermally modified wood, either on a deck or thermally modified wood deck. Just make sure that gets cleaned up. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, motion. We need to approve this? Is this I need a motion to approve the draft porch floor design guidelines. Commissioner Dimignani, would you like to make that motion?
I would like to attempt to make the motion. I would move that we approve the draft porch floor design guidelines as shown and with the edits and points of discussion that have been flagged here this evening, and that we approve it and that it be sent to the publishing and communications colleagues so that it can be finalized and distributed to the public kind of in a timely manner.
Terrific. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays or abstentions?
Nay.
One nay, please record for the record. And thank you very much for all that hard work. And tax credit group.
All right. This is Laura with the staff. There are 2 applications in Group 7 of the calendar year 2024 historic preservation tax credits, consisting of $18,225 in eligible expenses. These are both amendments to previous applications, one correcting the eligible expenditures submitted on a revised application form that had been missed, and the other that had been previously denied for incompleteness, but for which we have subsequently received the necessary documentation and determined that the work was in kind and eligible for the tax credit. So summaries of both of those projects were included in your board book, and staff recommends that the HPC approve Group 7 of the tax credit applications for calendar year 2024 and direct staff to transmit the approvals to the Department of Finance. And this should be closing out the applications for the tax credits for 2024.
Great. Then I'll move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the Group 7 Historic Preservation Tax Credit applications calendar year 2024 and transmit it to the Financial Department.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Galway, a second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Thank you very much. And we don't have minutes from October 22nd, so commission items we discussed earlier and staff items.
Also discussed earlier, nothing to add.
Can I add something?
Okay, Commissioner Doman would like to add something.
On Friday, October the 24th, I attended the 36th Montgomery County Awards for Historic Preservation. And at that Preservation Award ceremony, of which you're a member of, but you weren't there, they had the Flower Theater, of which I had never seen before, so after the award ceremony, I took a trip up to see what in the world it was all about, and that got an award. The Martha Gudelski Child Development Center got an award for adaptive reuse, and the Montgomery County Agricultural Center, which is the Ag Fair, which is one of the great things in Montgomery County, they got an award for agricultural heritage. And the ones that I guess I was most interested in is the Thomas Llewellyn Wright home received an award. There's also 2 awards. The author of the book, what's it called? A Father Designs for His Son. Jim Lenz was at the award ceremony, who was the author of this book. And Tom Wright, who is the current resident of the Llewellyn Wright home, was not able to make it. So he has a son, John Wright, which would be the let's see. We have Llewellyn as a son, Tom was the grandson, so he's the great-grandson. John Wright was there, so they got an award. Tom Wright got an award, was accepted by his son, John, for preservation and maintaining the house as it, almost like it's preserved. If you've been through it, it's a beautiful house, and it maintains the character of when it was built in the 1950s. So this award was given to Jim Lenz for the book that he wrote, and an award was given to Tom Wright for maintaining the house. And that was a nice award ceremony. And I did get to see, I went to the Martha Podolsky building, which I guess it was an adaptive reuse, so I couldn't see much inside of it. And of course, I've been to the fair, and I know what the fair is all about anyway. So that was my highlights. Okay.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned.